Amendment. Is there a second to this motion that I've just read?
Yes,
Thank you.
there was.
Okay.
Okay, so bear with me. The Finance Committee and I recommend that the town appropriate $1,683,750 from the Capital Expenditure Fund for the following items. Bear with me. $275,000 for ambulance replacement supplies, $12,150 for town hall HVAC, $24,000 for wastewater treatment sensor, $350 from police station HVAC, $99,000 for high school auditorium lighting, try to read my own writing, $750 for Adams School roof replacement, $23,600 for school supplies, $75,000 for school IT infrastructure upgrades, $75,000 for school exterior doors, okay? And then $110,587 from the Water Enterprise Fund for 2 four-wheel drive pickup trucks.
Is there a second to Mr. Murphy's motion to amend? Second. Ken, go right ahead.
Just to clarify on this one, this is not a difference of opinion. The warrant was published before the capital plan was fully updated. So these additional expenses are part of the capital expenditure plan. They went through the normal capital planning process. They were requests that were made during the budget process. So this is just an updated list of capital. Shouldn't be anything controversial. This is all stuff the town had requested of the Finance Committee.
Okay. Anybody else want to be heard? Yes. There was a second to his motion. Was there? Yeah, thank you.
Lixie Carey, 37 Green Street. I would like to know about the 2 pickup trucks. I just don't like that they're just the $110,000 for the DPW pickup trucks. Can someone explain that to me, why we need that?
Anybody here from DPW that can respond to that, or FinCom or Select Board?
We do have the motion to amend first.
Yes.
Before, and this was on the original motion, so I don't know.
But he also touched on his motion to amend, did he not?
Well, it includes it.
Includes it.
Motion to amend added 2 things already.
Okay, got it, okay. Ms. Hines, do you want to be heard? Ms. Buckley, do you want to be heard? Next.
Kathleen Buckley, Acting Town Manager. This is just Acting Town Manager. Thank you. This is just part of our regular replacement of vehicles that's on the warrant tonight, coming out of the Water Enterprise Fund.
Thank you. Yes, sir, do you want to be heard?
Michael Swirsky, 217 Gorwin Drive. Just curious about the replacement of HVAC for a brand new police station. Could you explain that, please?
Mr. Murphy?
Well, first off, the police station is...
Hold on, wait, use the microphone so I can hear you at home.
The police station, believe it or not, is not that new. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, James Keast, I saw him, it's like 20 years old. So it's just like nature, certain things upgrade, so they need to upgrade it and it needs to be replaced. Regarding the pickup trucks, they're Ford F-150s, but also has the package for the plow, so they can use that. And then there's other aspects to it. So it's not unreasonable from our looking at it and reviewing it. Mr. Keast, would you like to? No? He's hiding. Okay.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Further discussion?
Or are you still wondering about the police station?
That seems, sorry, that seems to be pretty excessive as far as compared to all the other adjustments and improvements.
Yeah, direct your comments to me, sir.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, we're looking at almost a fifth of the overall budget just for the police station, just for the HVAC. I mean, is that a competitive budget or a quote? Or is that, I mean, again, it seems like it's quite a bit of the budget.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir?
James Keast, Facility Director for the Town of Holliston. The systems are about 22 years old, and there's 3 separate systems. There's air recovery units, there's makeup air units, there's a boiler, and there's a chiller system. It's a very complicated system. It has a series of components that have failed, and so this is for replacement and upgrade of those components. It's needed because we have moisture problems in that building, and we're rusting firearms. We're also creating mold on uniforms and things, so it's a pretty serious problem that we need to address.
Okay, thank you, sir. Further discussion? Yes?
Pam Seco, 180 Fisk Street. Can you please tell me how much is coming out of the capital expenditure fund in this amended and how much out of water retained earnings? I can't come up with the total.
I think it was $1,683,750 from the capital expenditure fund and $110,587 from the water enterprise fund, if I have it correct. Is that
Thank
right,
you.
Ben?
Thank you.
Is that right, Mr. Murphy?
Yes, Mr. Barber.
Thank you. Yep. Further discussion? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Darrell Abbey, 351 High Street. I don't have an issue with the estimated cost or the breakdown of that cost, and perhaps my question is more procedural. In Article 16, we approved the allocation to raise funds in the amount of $1.8 million for capital.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you got to keep your voice up so everybody can hear you, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
In Article 16, we agreed to approve the appropriation of $1.8 million to move to the CapEx fund. And here, we're taking money right back out of the CapEx fund in the amount of $1.6 million. So are we just taking money out of one pocket and putting it back in the same pocket again?
Mr.
Yes, but it's also required to do that because there's different rules regarding the CapEx fund of how that's treated versus the money that goes into it. This CapEx is more like a sinking fund, so you just say, well, how much, and they keep track of how much has been spent against it. And anything that hasn't been spent gets returned back into the CapEx fund. So that's the logic and logistics behind it. Plus, we put more money in, hopefully in the fall. So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? All right, if not, we'll proceed to vote on the motion to amend advanced by Mr. Murphy and Dr. Shader and properly seconded. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Now we move to a vote on the main motion as amended for the increased amounts and the amounts identified in the motion to amend you just approved. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 19, Facility for Department of Public Works, Design and Engineering, Construction and Administration, to see if the town will vote to repurpose $7 million appropriated from the Capital Expenditure Fund under Article 21 of the 2023 Annual Town Meeting for the following purposes: acquisition and/or lease and installation thereof of temporary DPW facilities, including critical infrastructure repairs necessary to maintain the current operations, to include but not limited to modular offices, bathrooms. 2, feasibility, engineering, and design studies and services such as, but not limited to, traffic studies, environmental impacts, and butter impacts, etc., related to the previously proposed alternative to be determined sites for the new DPW facility, or take any action relative thereto. Replace the failing culvert, a structure over a body of water, to continue to safely access the site. The motion is move to accept the repurposing of the $7 million previously appropriated from the Capital Expenditure Fund for the DPW facility in the Maytown meeting of 2023 for the purposes stated in the article. Is there a second? Let me note for the record that the Finance Committee recommends that the town reappropriate $1 million of the $7 million, with $500,000 used for the culvert replacement and $500,000 to be used to maintain the existing facilities while a new site is still being studied, 6-0, with Matt Leach absent. So we'll proceed. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, do you want to make a motion to amend?
I do, sir.
Yep, okay,
So
go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion and to only...
Hold on a second. Did I get a second on the main motion? No. Is there a second on the main motion?
I second.
You seconded? All right, thank you, sir. Now, go ahead.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to amend the first motion to reappropriate only $1 million so that of the $7 million that was appropriated back in 2021. So $500,000 will be used for the culvert replacement and $500,000 will be used to maintain the existing facilities while a new site is being studied.
Okay, is there a second to that? I'm sorry, what? You give that to us in writing? Please, thank you. We'll continue the debate we'll advance the debate while you're doing that for us, Vin. Thank you. All right, that motion is amended. It's seconded, so that's open for discussion. Sir, do you want to be heard? Go right ahead.
David Gann, 72 Water Street. Mr. Moderator, on the language of that referring to the failing culvert, a structure over a body of water to continue to safely access the existing DPW site. Can I get someone to specify which failing culvert we're talking about?
Sure. Fair question. Anybody able to help us with respect to what culvert they're talking about?
It's out in Article 20, so it's site between...
Vin, Mr. Murphy, listen to me, sir. We have people at home. I want to encourage you to speak, but wait till you talk to you. Come up to the microphone so everybody can hear you, please. Thank you.
It is between... Sorry, I just saw it. 89 and 92 Arch Street. I haven't been there, so...
In Article 20, you're saying?
Yes, it's all referencing the one same in Article 20. So what will happen is we approve Article 19 as amended, or even if we keep it, we'll just indefinitely postpone or not even do anything with Article 20. So.
Okay, sir, go ahead. You've got the floor.
Mr. Moderator, the reason that I raised the point is that in April of 2023, as an abutter to the bridge on Water Street, we were informed that the scope of work involved several of those bridges, those granite bridges. And at the time, I made it widely known that I was opposed to such a move because those bridges have historical significance. They were built in 1850. They were built to bridge Mudville to the rest of the town. They were using the granite that was the bread and butter of the town. They're of historical significance.
Okay.
In the 2 years since, I haven't heard anything referring to the culvert. We always called it a bridge on Water Street. And I just wanted to make sure that what we were voting for here was very specifically keyed to the culvert on Arch Street. And since the language there is just vaguely referring to a culvert, I'd like to make a motion to amend that in Article 19 that the...
No, we're not on Article 19. We're on this article.
This is not...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Excuse me. I stand corrected. We do. Now we're going to have a motion to amend that motion. You're seeking to amend Mr. Murphy's motion by giving greater specificity to which culvert we're talking about.
Correct, Mr. Moderator.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I'd like to add...
I'm sorry, is there a dispute? Are we all on the same page that the culvert that's being described is the one that this gentleman's concerned with? Tina? So let me have this gentleman speak, and he may address your concern. Your motion may be unnecessary if we're all on the same page. Go ahead, sir, if you will, please. Come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and let the folks here and at home know what you can share with us.
Robert Walker, Deputy DPW Director. The culvert that we are referring to replacing is the one that's on Arch Street, right by Pleasure Point.
No, these are the three they want to repurpose it for.
Yeah.
Thank you.
$1 million isn't going to do it for any of those.
No. This is what the money was originally appropriated for?
No, this is what they want to change it to.
Mr. Moderator?
I'm sorry, go ahead, sir.
Right. If we're of that understanding, and given that that's on the record at town meeting, I withdraw my motion to have it spelled out in the record, and appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yes, sir. Mr. Cronin?
Good evening, John Cronin, 40 Holly Lane. I'd ask the Finance Committee to address the reasons why they are looking to amend Article 19 from $7 million to $1 million. This article was sponsored by the Select Board. I have some background and knowledge on why it's needed and what the purpose for. I think it's well defined in our warrant article this evening. It's important to note that this town meeting is called by the Select Board through the warrant that's delivered to you by the Select Board. Our Finance Committee makes recommendations to it. This is a very, very complicated project. Yes, Pam, it is true. It is. And I'm concerned that the Finance Committee is making amendments to amendments to these motions without the full knowledge of the project. They simply asked for you to change the $7 million to $1 million, but didn't explain why. How come? Could I please get an explanation from our Finance Committee?
Good,
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy. There you go, Mr. Murphy, right up to the microphone. Thank you, sir.
Here's my vote.
Oh, great, thanks. Give it to Mr. Talaman to get his blessing, please. Thanks.
Secondly, I'm sure you fell asleep during my presentation, but I did address it during the presentation.
Now, let's keep it on a high level, Mr. Murphy.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the reason we are not aware of anything. They didn't communicate to us about what the whole purpose of the $7 million. We understand there is a reason for certain things. We said, let's give us budgets, as we all do normally, for anything. We haven't received anything. So while we understand they're making a recommendation, it is our responsibility as the Finance Committee to check these recommendations. Is there any backing to it? Is there a reason for certain things? We're all in favor. We understand there's stuff that has to be done, that those two facilities are falling apart, but it is checks and balances. And we're just saying, slow down, provide us information, bring it to us, and then we can make a recommendation in October or next May.
So culvert is fine.
Yeah.
Feasibility's gone. But 500 to maintain the existing facility, that's not there. So I'm just a little concerned that we're like really just changing it so much that it bears no relationship. That's
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead. Further discussion? Yes? Yeah? Nope. In the middle? You yield? All right, come on up and stand on the side if you will. I'll get you next. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Michael Tamby, 25 Morgan's Way. Can someone explain this to me in plain English? So the way I understand it, 2 years ago we said DPW facility is basically falling apart, so we allocated $7 million. And so in the since time, we've spent, I don't know what percentage of that $7 million, maybe not, no, we haven't come up with something, so now we're saying we want to spend the $7 million just as a stopgap to something else, then we might spend $45 million. So I'm kind of lost in all this. And so perhaps somebody could just explain this to me in plain English.
Oh, sir. Tina, go ahead if you can respond to that. Thank you.
It's a fair question. In 2023, the article to move forward with the DPW facility, the project, was $7 million to be appropriated from capital expenditure and $23 million to be raised through excluded and non-excluded debt. The trigger was that it would be site-specific to Cross Street, especially and only the debt component of it. The capital expenditure money, CapEx funds, were not specific to the site, which is why we're here tonight. We are not here to ask for additional debt spending for development of a DPW project because we are still in site selection. The $23 million of the total 30 back in 2023 is not being discussed tonight. Tonight, we're looking for repurposing the $7 million for the reasons specified in the article.
Okay.
It's not specific to the site. And if I may take a moment?
No, go right ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Excuse me.
In terms of the why $1 million, why is it limited? I asked the same question. We hear from the public through our public forums, public engagement, public comment, through emails sent to us, through meetings that each of the select board members have one-on-one with concerned residents. We hear a number of concerns and questions asked related to the feasibility of any site. For example, we hear questions about what will the traffic impact impact be? We hear questions about what would site development look like on any particular chosen site. We have been asked to, and we have currently open, it closes in 2 days, a request for proposals for privately owned land. We would have to have the acquisition costs for privately owned land if we were to move forward in that direction. So we are responding to the public feedback we have from residents for the past several weeks and months now. In limiting us to a $1 million appropriation for a repurposing rather of the $7 million, I do not see that as necessary, and it also limits our ability. $500,000 we have estimated for the culvert replacement, leaving $500,000 for us to do all of the work that you see outlined in the article. So any acquisition costs, any exploration of a site, any feasibility, as well as, perhaps importantly to state, any interim solution we need if and when the buildings fail. And the point about where are the cost estimates for the Finance Committee to review, that's a very difficult thing to provide in the sense that we don't know what will cause the buildings to fail. We don't know the extent of the failure, so we can't put forward a cost for a future unknown certainty as to what types of buildings we'd have to have as that interim solution. So to cap it at $500,000 to accomplish the 3 bullets within the article is to limit our ability to respond to resident concerns, to do that additional feasibility study on a number of issues that have been brought forward. It limits our ability to start any process to acquire private-owned land if that's the direction that we end up going forward with town meeting feedback, of course. It limits our ability to explore any of that, and it limits our ability with the interim solutions that we will anticipate needing to make in the coming years. So it puts handcuffs on the select board, on the town's ability to progress this project. We are not here to ask town meeting to be town project managers on a complicated, multi-year, significant project. Returning to town meeting to get additional repurposing approval from the $7 million that was already approved in 2023 is to make town meeting a project manager. We have staff, we have consultants, we have a dedicated select board that frequently puts us on agendas to talk about in public meetings. We are committed to bringing this back to the public. So speaking not so much to the prior resident's question, but to the amended motion, I really urge town meeting not to approve the amended motion. It puts, again, handcuffs on the town's ability to make progress on this project, and it makes town meeting project managers, again, on a multi-year, multi-million-dollar complicated project. And I don't believe that's the intent of town meeting or the purpose for town meeting. We have staff, we have consultants, and we have a dedicated select board to guide through this process and keep feedback from town meeting and residents coming in and keep town meeting informed. Thank you.
Mr. Sparrow?
Yeah, I want to make 2 quick points here. Ben Sparrow, Vice Chair of the Select Board.
No, don't have to be quick. Take your time. It's an important article. Go ahead.
Okay. The 2 points I want to make, the first is that any site selection will go through this body, just to be clear here. So, you know, the Select Board is putting things forward. The town meeting is going to be able to approve the site. We don't know quite what that will look like in the future, but I don't want people to think that the $7 million is going to go to a site that town meeting does not have a say in. The second point I want to make is the Finance Committee's recommendation includes, let's see, what is it, $500,000 to be used for maintain the existing facilities while a new site is being studied. We are not asking to maintain those existing facilities. We are asking for the acquisition or lease installation of temporary facilities, because those facilities that are currently existing on Arch Street and Central Street are in very poor condition, and putting $500,000 into them is a bad idea. It need to be replaced, and hence the need for these articles. So thank you. I want to make that clarification.
Mr. Cronin, go ahead. And then Mr. Alford. You're all set? Okay, Dan, go right ahead, please. I thought you were waiting to be heard. I am. You yield to Mr. Alford? What a gentlemanly thing for you to do. Go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry, Lexi. Excuse me.
Do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. Thank you.
So as a member of the working group back in my former days, I apologize, Dan Alford, 315 High Street, with you. Unfortunately, actually, the article from 2023, which is Article 21, did actually specify that the $7 million that we were setting aside was actually for the Axton Cross site. So we can go back and we can look, but the whole article reads, contingent upon a successful vote on the corresponding ballot question on the May 2023 election ballot, which happened and passed, the Finance Committee recommends that the town appropriate $7 million from the Capital Expenditure Fund and approve a borrowing authorization to be 75% non-excluded, or $17.25 million, and 25% excluded, or $5.75 million, for the proposed article at the 20 Cross Street location, and that passed 7-0 by the Finance Committee. So the $7 million was set aside for Axton Cross. And I've watched the meetings and I've seen the presentation from the select board, and there just isn't enough information to understand what they're spending the $7 million on now. So I think that what the Finance Committee has proposed is reasonable, gives them some leeway in case there is something that happens, to get some extra units? Modular units to house people. But then we can get a real plan, come back, present it to town meeting, because while town meeting isn't project managers, town meeting is fund allocators, and you want to know what you're voting on and what you're spending your taxpayer dollars on.
Lexi?
Thank you.
Lixie Carey, 37 Green Street, thank you. It's mostly the second bullet. It's the feasibility engineering, blah, 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 relating to the previously proposed alternative or to-be-determined sites. I like the idea of putting handcuffs on this project because I don't like what's being proposed. And when we voted on $7 million, we kind of liked the idea of Axton Cross. And I think that there's just not enough consensus that we found someplace, and I'm afraid you guys are going to go and spend money on something that a lot of people in this town don't want you to spend money on. So I'm in favor of just $1 million and putting handcuffs on this project.
Mr. Cronin, do you want to be heard?
It would appear it's the shade would like to speak.
Okay, you yield again. Dr. Shader, go right ahead.
I've been waiting for 10 minutes, Bill. Ken Shader, 676 Fisk. So just to be clear, I support 100% what Lixie just said. The reason the Finance Committee took this vote was because the Select Board came to us, not physically, but through the warrant and other things, and has said publicly at their meetings, the current DPW facility is in rough shape. We need to do something about it. We all agree that there's something that needs to be done. Along with that, they came and said, hey, there's this culvert right near the existing facility that if it fails, cuts off access to the DPW. So we looked at it, and as proposed, when they said we want the $7 million, I said, what do you want it for? Explain to us what you're going to do. We understand you need money to maintain. When we say maintain, that's being semantic. What Ms. Hine is saying, maintain means keep the current facilities going in whatever fashion it takes until we have a new site. That may be modular units. We're not saying put $500,000 into the old buildings if that's not the smart thing to do. However, it would be an abrogation of our responsibility as a Finance Committee to you, the people who elected us. If a board, whether it be at the Select Board or anybody else, no matter what they have the responsibility for, came to us and said, the town voted to put $7 million towards a specific project. Now, we want you to just agree with us that we can take the money for a similar project with no details, no cost estimates, nothing, just give us a $7 million blank check. Then I would expect you to vote all 7 of us out of office next year, because that would be highly irresponsible. Okay? Instead, we understood the problem that they were bringing to us, that the current facility needs some money to handle some of the issues, and that the culvert needs to be replaced to allow the current facilities to keep going while they do their work to try to find a new site. So the $1 million came as a result of asking for cost estimates. When there was talk about the modular units, I specifically talked to the town's officials, not the Select Board. I will be completely honest, because I was at Town Hall, so I was talking to town employees there. And I basically said, do you have quotes for the modular units? Do you have any quotes for any of the stuff that would be needed to maintain the facility? No, we're in the process of getting those. So the fiscally responsible thing for us to do, which is what we did, was we said, look, the one thing we know is the 500,000 culvert needs to be replaced, so we'll give them that. They need, the estimate was the modular units would be a couple $100,000. So we said 500,000, that should be more than enough to cover whatever they need to do in the short term to keep the facility going in the proper manner. Okay? That's how we came to our recommendation. We are not opposed to, at a future town meeting, if the select board came in and said, hey, there's more costs incurred that we need to take care of. We're all in support of doing what it takes to make the current facility last until we get a new one. Right? However, what we don't agree with was what Lixie said, right? The money was intended to offset the cost you and me and everybody in this room would pay when we go to a new building. It was specifically allocated to lower the tax impact of the new DPW facility. If we spend the entire $7 million looking for another site or doing other things, then that's $7 million more that all of us have to pay when the time comes. So we looked at it and said, we're okay with releasing part of it because we realize we've got this bind. Cross Street isn't coming through as quickly as we thought. They need to do this work. We'll give them enough money to allow things to continue while they can go off and look at other sites. And when they have a new site, they can come back to town meeting and say, now give us the rest of the money so that we can do the design work for that. And have the town decide, is this the site we want? As Ms. Carey pointed out, there are lots of people in this town that do not agree with the sites that the select board has been looking at. So why would we as a town vote to give them $7 million to pursue avenues that we as a town may not want them to pursue? Have them come back to us when they have a site and say, give us the rest of the $7 million. We'll be happy to support it if the town says, yes, we have a new site, here's the rest of the $7 million. But right now, all they've asked for is the culvert and money to keep the existing facilities going. And that's what we're recommending, and we hope you support our motion to amend. Thank you.
Mr. Cronin, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you. John Cronin, 40 Holly Lane. Earlier, the chair of the Finance Committee remarked that I must have been asleep when he made his presentation. I was wide awake. I listened to it. And I was vexed then as I am with his answer. What is the $1 million for? I still don't have an answer. You have a proposed amendment in front of you to spend $1 million on something that the vice chair just said, we think we need that. So that sounds like a committee overreach to me. They're hijacking an article that the select board has put before you that I believe is thoughtful and responsive to the plans of this town and the needs of the Department of Public Works. Those buildings are falling down. When they fall down, they have to fix it. They're the ones who have to respond, nobody else. So they're going to need the resources to tend to those buildings until the Cross Street property is ready. It's in land court. It's probably going to be years before it comes out. So I will ask again, what's the $1 million for? You're about to vote on something. Do you know what it's for? And is it possible that part of it is not applicable under the terms of an amendment? Could I please get an answer on what the $1 million for? And when you get an answer, I'd like to have a follow-up, please.
As I understand the article, the motion is that $1 million of the $7 million with $500,000 for culvert replacement. The culvert's been identified. I think we have an understanding what culvert we're talking about. And $500,000 to be used to maintain the existing facilities while a new site is still being studied.
I would ask town council to evaluate the second portion of that amendment to find out if it is well within the framework of this article and if it is votable.
Okay, let me,
I believe it is too broad and it does not necessarily.
I'll refer the question to council.
Thank you.
I've looked at that while the debate is ongoing, and with respect to the article that's published for our consideration today, the first bullet point was acquisition or lease and installation thereof of temporary DPW facilities, including critical infrastructure repairs necessary to maintain the current operations, to include but not limited to modular offices and bathrooms. This article, the second part of it, the first part covers the culvert that's in the third bullet point. The second part, I think $500,000 to be used to maintain the existing facilities while a new site is still being studied could reasonably be interpreted to include critical infrastructure repairs necessary to maintain the current operations, to include but not limited to modular offices and bathrooms. But I'll defer to Mr. Talaman and see what he thinks. So go ahead. Okay? Yep. All right. Mr. Talaman indicates that he defers to me, he thinks mine is a reasonable interpretation. So it's my view that the amendment is within the scope of the article. I'm not saying to vote in favor or against it, but I think it's properly before town meeting.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Moderator. I will just leave with these remarks. You all should remember that these articles are prepared by the town select board. I would encourage you to reject this motion. This is an overreach of a finance committee into a executive board space. It is classic, and I think it should be rejected. They are not managing the project. The select board is. Please reject this article. Thank you.
Theo down in Live and Shade Drive. So my question is, the facilities, the one on Arch Street and the other location, are they dilapidated? Are they a strong storm? So does any manufacturing get done there? Does any maintenance get done there of the vehicle, equipment, and other things? Okay, so I've worked in construction, modular units, also, if there's any type of manufacturing being done, there's also temporary structures that also can be purchased. So what is preventing us from just demolishing the structures itself? Because I assume the soil and the land is okay, so you can build temporary structures, use whatever money that you've allocated, or if you've even looked into this, use that money that was allocated, have basically the office being one location with, trailers, and then another location be for the actual maintenance of the actual vehicles or any type of manufacturing that is being done. Has any of this been looked at, and why did that not happen? I guess is my question. Say we have $7 million, you got $1 million for, or $500,000 is going to be used for the upkeep of the facility. It just seems like you're putting a Band-Aid on basically a fire hose. I just don't see the reason.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sparrow?
Ben Sparrow, Vice Chair of the Select Board. I don't know if I have to introduce myself every time, but I will, out of protocol. So that's what this article is asking for. If you look at the first bullet point, acquisition and or lease installation thereof of temporary DPW facilities.
Yeah, you say that, like an office and bathroom.
I'm sorry, sir, they can't hear you at home over there. This isn't a back and forth. I'm sorry, let Mr. Sparrow finish his response.
So, yeah, I saw that, and it said for the bathrooms and all that. I understand that. That's fine. If you're on a construction site, you're going to have that for the project managers, estimators, all that great stuff. But I'm more interested in the mechanics. Yeah. And so, why are we not? If I might didn't read that, but
that would include maintaining current operations.
Right.
Maintaining current operations.
Maintaining,
but also to include, it would be all of those particular parts. It would depend on what failed and where.
Right.
So basically, the idea is to be able to maintain the.
But maintain the current existing building.
No.
Okay, just operations.
So acquisition and or lease installation of temporary facilities.
Okay, so it's a both.
The intention is if they fail, those buildings would not be usable, therefore we would need some sort of a temporary solution.
Okay, so if it's both of them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Second.
Who else wants to be heard? Michelle?
Can I make one other quick point here? I understand some of the concerns here about the feasibility engineering, but one of the things that's coming forward as we talk about these additional locations and the results of the RFP is forthcoming is people are asking us for things like traffic studies, for things like, there might be needs for soil studies or some other kinds of studies of the particular locations, and we need to be able to have the resources to accomplish those things in the event those locations come forward. So I just wanted to make that point clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, go ahead. I'll call on you next, miss.
Michelle Zemer, 583 Winter Street. I just wanted to address the question of the Finance Committee overreach. This comes right from the bylaws. This is Article 4, Section 4. The Finance Committee shall consider any and all municipal questions for the purpose of making reports or recommendations to the town, including but not limited to matters relating to the appropriation, the borrowing, and the expenditure of money, municipal debt, property valuations and assessments, and the administration of town offices and departments. So I would question how the amendment and our excuse me, our recommendation is overreach when it is very much within the bounds of the bylaw.
Patricia Boyd, 85 Karen Circle. It seems to me the $1 million takes care of bullet 1 and 3. Now, up to this point, there have been a lot of work done by our consulting firm. I believe it's Weston and Sampson. I watched that meeting. They looked at 12 different sites. I attended the field trip to the Pinecrest site. Bullet 2, where are you getting that money to pay them? And do you need more? Is that what Bullet 2 is about? No.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Tina, go ahead. You can answer her, please.
No, it does not pay for the ongoing consulting work with Weston and Sampson. We have, I believe, I'm looking at James Keese to confirm, I believe we have $500,000 remaining on our contract with Weston and Sampson for that work, so no.
So the $400,000, what about purchasing private land? If someone responds to the RFP and you like the price that they want, then do you have to go into the borrowing for the $23 million, or is that from the second? Tina, let's
Go ahead, Tina, please. Thank you.
Again, fair and good questions. We would not purchase property without coming to town meeting. Hard stop. Right. There will be legal fees to explore the feasibility of purchasing a site. We'd have to look at title, we'll do a title search and other deed restrictions. We might want to do soil testing on a site before we would consider it for purchase. So that would be what we could potentially use the money for. Again, feasibility for site development, site selection, site development. There will be no site determination without town meeting approval.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move the question. I'm sorry. Second. I'll let Pat have one last question. No, Ms. Boyd, go right ahead. For old time's sake, for you and I.
Am I supposed to talk now?
Go right ahead.
So just to wrap it up, the $6 million that you need, besides the $1 million that they're offering, is for bullet 2. Boy, I'm so confused.
The motion does not identify by bullet point how much for each one. The underlying motion was for the $7 million for all of those points. Last speaker, yes. You were waiting patiently there. I was going to take a motion to move the question, but I didn't think that would be fair to you, so go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Welcome. Allison Quinnan, 37 Pilgrim Road. So first, I understand that Article 20 actually covers the $500,000 for the culvert fix. So my question about this article is, what will not be able to be done if the amount is reduced from $7 million to $1 million, or actually to $500,000, because $500,000 is dedicated and earmarked for the culvert? So what will you not be able to do if you don't have that money? What if opportunities for purchasing private land, for doing feasibility studies, what if those opportunities come up before the next town meeting and you don't have the money allocated to do the research and the studies that are necessary to then bring forward a potential property to the next town meeting? And if the $7 million is repurposed tonight, will the select board essentially spend it all, or is this just an opportunity to have $7 million available available to do the feasibility studies and to look into other options, et cetera. So that's my concern, is what can you not
Good,
do?
Bill. Yeah, great, thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the challenge is as the previous speaker had indicated, if the money is not allocated here, as the RFP comes forward or other sites might come forward through additional processes, we would not be able to do the studies that are required. And the longer we wait, the more this costs. So when we looked at the DPW facility, when we had a report a couple months ago, every year that we wait could cost between $1.5 to $3 million. I mean, it's pretty substantial, and with tariffs potentially, with other potential inflationary costs coming into play, the longer we wait, the more expensive this is. The intention here is to have something in front of this body in October. We need to move forward quickly, or this is going to get more expensive. We're talking $50 million. It could get to $60 million very quickly the longer we wait, and 6 months is a long time. We want to be able to finish the studies that are required for the results of the RFP and to make sure that we have all the answers for this body in October. And we also don't know how much those temporary facilities could cost, and we want to make sure that we're prepared for that. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? There's a motion to move the question. Is there a second? Okay, I'm satisfied that the motion and the underlying article have been sufficiently debated. So all those in favor of moving the question say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So we return to the main motion as amended, and just for purposes of the record, the motion now as amended is to reappropriate $1 million of the $7 million. I'm sorry, Jay.
That was just to move the question. Now we have to vote on the amendment.
Thank you. You effectively moved the question, so now we're going to vote on the amendment. The amendment is to reappropriate $1 million of the $7 million, with $500,000 for the culvert replacement and $500,000 to be used to maintain the existing facilities while a new site is still being studied, and that's been seconded. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That's close enough, so we're going to call for hand count on it, please. Thank you. We've got tellers in each segment?
Each section has counters, yep.
Okay.
Hold up their,
Yep.
hold up their slips.
Yeah, does everybody have a slip?
They do.
Okay.
All those in favor.
All those in favor of the amended motion, say, hold up your slip, please. What's that? We're voting, you're voting whether or not to amend the main motion to... Correct. And then if the amendment passes, then we'll vote on the motion as amended. This is on the motion to amend to, in effect, reduce the requested apportionment from $7 million to $1 million. Tell us a report to the town clerk, not me. Thanks.
Okay. 1-5. Thank you.
How many tellers we have?
We even know for each section.
Okay.
Who's in the middle?
That's what I'm asking.
Walters. Yeah, what's your number there? 33. Thank you. Where's the, isn't that Abby Walters? Oh, it's Patricia. No, Joanne was back. Where are you? Where? I thought Joanne was the back. No. 21, but who's in the middle? I need someone in the middle.
Who's in the middle? Do we have a teller in the middle in the rear?
No, we don't. So Joanne? Joanne did, what's her name?
We apologize for the delay. We need a teller to handle the
Tricia.
rear section.
What was your number? 21? Thank you, Lisa.
What do we have, 5 sections?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, don't hurry. We don't want any injuries here.
Where's Holliston?
24.
She's up there. 24? All right, so who's going to count? Who's counting the middle? Joanne, can you... Tricia and Joanne, can you decide who's going to count? One of us to
You're
take
talking
that back middle.
We're doing the opposed now?
Now we can do the opposed.
We have somebody for every... All right, all those opposed, raise their hand, please. Thank you.
Oh, let's do that again. Okay.
Who's Joanne the first time?
In the same section as Tricia.
Oh.
3, 4.
Hi, Joanne.
13. Oh, you were supposed to be. Yeah, I don't know what I did with my list, but yes, could you please? Yes, thank you. Did you have a tag? 3, 3. 1, 3. Yep, one more. 2, 0.
Is that all of them?
That's all of them.
Okay.
You got 113? Yep, motion fails.
What do we got?
113 no, 106 yes.
Okay, the results of the motion, all those in favor were 106, all those opposed were 113. Very narrow vote, but the motion fails. Yes? Sure.
Mr. Moderator, Jay Leary, 146 Karen Circle. It's my understanding from one of the other speakers earlier that this money that was earmarked, the $7 million back in 2023, was specific to a certain site, which was the Cross Street site. So I guess I'm wondering is how can we even be voting on this motion at all when it's asking to spend money at a site that is other than the 20 Cross Street site, and it's asking to spend money on the Arch Street culvert and or to use it for other purposes that might not be related to the Cross Street site. Could I have that answer, please?
Jay, you want to handle that? I think
Jay Tallerman, Town Council. We looked at that question. The funding under Article 23 at the prior town meeting had different components of it, 23 million of it which got locked in also through a debt exclusion vote. The $7 million was more of a simple capital expenditure vote. So that money was not restricted to from being amended further, which is the article before you here today. So this town meeting has the full authority to change the purpose of the $7 million. Not so easy with the $23 million, but the $7 million, this town meeting has the authority to alter the purpose.
Thank you. Okay, the motion to amend having failed, we now turn to a vote on the main motion. That's the one that was published in the warrant, the $7 million figure. I won't take your time repeating it. All those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Jay, can I accept that voice vote? Huh? Okay, we'll hand count again just to make sure. There's a hotly debated article, so let's make sure we have it right. So all those in favor of the motion, raise their hand, please.
Everybody out there.
What's that?
They can hear us on camera.
I'm
Don't say
incorrigible.
anything bad. 3-8?
Yeah.
What? Go ahead, you can say it.
Yeah.
1-6. Okay.
These folks can speak up. There's
I know,
nothing secretive
I know,
about it.
I know.
Henry used to whisper.
I know. We don't have to whisper.
I want the tellers to feel free to speak up loudly what the vote is. It's not a secret ballot. Thanks. We got them all?
No.
No?
We need two more. We need three.
I have 38, 17, 16, 25.
38, 17. Who gave us 17?
Chris, did you hear Chris?
No, I didn't.
Okay, he told us.
So who's doing the middle? Where's Peg?
We have not heard from Peg yet.
Peg. So we need the middle counted. We know that. We know that.
Who's the teller for the middle section?
It's Peg. She just walked back in. She had to go to the
Peg.
Peg is here. She's counting.
Oh, I'm going to tell her.
You're counting the middle, right, Peg? Yes. Okay.
Peg, are you counting the middle for us?
Put your hands up.
All those in favor need to raise their hand in the middle.
You might want to remind me.
Yeah. Who is counting the middle? All right, let's, in the all right, the middle section, please hold your hands up again so we can get an accurate count.
In favor of the motion.
In favor of the motion. Yes, just the middle section.
We don't have to whisper. 42.
Okay, those opposed?
Say it out loud. It's okay. Thank you. Thank you. $28. $16. 16. 19. Thank you. Okay, so
That's agreed? Okay. The vote is 138 in favor, 84 opposed, so that motion passes. Article 20 was conditioned upon whether Article 19 passed or did not pass. Since Article 19 passed, we're free to bypass Article 20. We'll move to Article 21 to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the purpose of addressing the ADA compliance of existing sidewalks and ramps in town or take any action relative thereto. As I recall, the Select Board addressed this in their comments, so I'll spare you the explanation. The motion is moved to raise and appropriate $1 million from the Capital Expenditure Fund for the purpose of addressing the ADA compliance of existing sidewalks and ramps in town as presented in Article 21. Is there a second? The Finance Committee recommends that the town appropriate $500,000 from the Capital Expenditure Fund for sidewalk maintenance, with Matt Leach absent.
So,
yes, Mr.
I'd like
Murphy.
to make a motion to, yes, Vin Murphy from 432 Norfolk Street, Chair of the FinCom. So I'd like to make a motion to appropriate only $500,000 from the CapEx fund.
Okay.
I shall write it down.
You'll write it down for us, right? And is there a second? Okay, the motion to amend is properly made and seconded. Do you want to be heard, Mr. Murphy, in support of your motion?
Sure. You want to write? So as I stated in my presentation, the reason we want to postpone or just only spend $500,000 is that the original plan, the working group, when they developed all this about the sidewalks, said, let's use free cash. So rather than appropriating $500,000 all from the $1 million from capital expenditure, we're recommending let's do $500,000, and then when we come in October, we'll have some additional monies from free cash. Then we'll be able to say, let's appropriate additional monies for the sidewalks.
Thank you. Ms. Hine, the Select Board was the sponsor of the underlying article, so go ahead and respond to the motion, if you will.
Just a little history lesson. Back in October 2022, the
Cut it to
appropriation
500,000.
was raise and appropriate from capital expenditure. In 2023, the appropriation was the article was raise and appropriate from capital expenditure. We are following our past practice with this article to raise and appropriate from capital expenditures. We're not deviating from our past practice. Thank you.
And how about the amount? The suggestion is that it be reduced by 50%.
Yeah, a reduction in 50% would mean that projects that are backlogged, that are in the pipeline with DPW ready to go to perform, would be delayed. The costs would be higher when they are completed. We have projects that are lined up for the summer with money that's remaining from the prior appropriation, and projects that are lined up for the fall. If this is successful tonight to go forward, those would be delayed. And when we come back to appropriate, as the Finance Committee Chair suggested, in October, we would be out of the construction season heading into the winter. They would be delayed until next spring, most likely at the earliest, and the cost we anticipate would be higher due to all the obvious reasons. So we're looking to do $1 million to address the backlog with known projects that are waiting in the pipeline, using the capital expenditure fund as we have done with both prior articles. Thank you.
Mr. Shader, Dr. Shader, please.
Ken Shader, 676 Fisk. Just to comment a couple of things. In October, when we appropriate from the capital expenditure fund, a lot of that is because we have the free cash number. And logistically, what we do is we take the free cash and we put it into the capital expenditure fund, and then we appropriate it from there. So it's semantic to say everything's always come out of the capital expenditure fund. We do it in October for a reason, because in October we have the number. We know how much we can put towards it. That was the agreement of the working group, was to wait till we had free cash in October to make an allocation. As far as impacting ongoing work, the town has already appropriated well north of $2 million. I think it's closer to $3 million. In fact, it may be over $3 million at this point for the sidewalk work. The Stantec report that governs all this said $1.8 million is what it would take to bring all the sidewalks up to ADA compliance. We keep hearing ADA compliance over and over again, and obviously it's very important. But what's really happening is, if you look at the Stantec report, it says in detail that the money's not just for ADA, it's for new sidewalks, it's for repair of existing sidewalks, which is all good. I'm not arguing against that. Okay. But when we looked at the money in the capital expenditure fund, and what we looked at what was planned for today and what is on the capital expenditure plan for the fall, there's concern that we are spending more than we're putting in, which is obviously unsustainable in the long term. Okay? The reason we wanted to lower this to $500,000 was because we got the status of what's going on. We were told that the existing money, okay, the existing monies from prior appropriations have not been fully expended. They've been committed, but the projects haven't been done yet, and they're scheduled to be done over this summer through August 30th. And as you know, winter is not sidewalk season. None of the work is done when the weather gets too cold. So we felt that by giving an additional $500,000, we could make sure that all the work that needed to be done this summer would get done, that was presented to us, okay? It was presented to us. And that in October, when we had the free cash number and we had an idea as to what the other capital requests were going to require, we could then put more money, which wouldn't get used until next year, next paving season, if you want to call it that. So this was a way to make sure the sidewalk work would continue while also being financially responsible by saying we need to wait till October because the total amount of capital requests that are sitting in front of us right now, over $4 million. We put $1.8 million in at this town meeting. We've already appropriated more, about that amount, right, as was pointed out before. We have another $2 million waiting for appropriation in October. So the sole reason for lowering it from $1 million to $500,000 was to keep the project going, but to allow us to get better visibility into future capital needs, because we cannot continue to spend $4 and $5 million from the capital expenditure fund and only put in $1.8 million every May. We've been able to do that in the past because free cash has supplemented that. That's been our primary use of free cash. We come here every fall and we say, when we have the number, we stick it into the capital expenditure fund after we do a couple of other little housekeeping things. So all we're asking here is we're not killing the sidewalk project, we're not causing any grave harm, we're just saying, give them enough to get through this paving season, the $500,000, and then in the fall, when we have better clarity, we'll give them the other $500,000 if we can afford it. Because the reality of the situation is, and we haven't talked about this much tonight, but the reality of the situation is that last year was a very difficult budget year. Everybody knows inflation has been killing a lot of things, okay? Inflation kills town budgets because we're limited by Prop 2.5. We have at least $500,000 of expenses we know are coming with certainty in fiscal 27. So we're starting out already with a $500,000 hole. So I would certainly ask that you support our recommendation of $500,000, which allows the sidewalk work to continue and allows us to get better fiscal clarity before we commit another $500,000 to the ongoing work. Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to amend? Yes, Tina, go ahead, please. She yielded. That's all right. Go ahead, sir. Sir? Yeah, go ahead.
Mike Tamby, 25 Morgan's Way. Can the select board give precise details about what projects would not happen if it were go, like specific streets, specific sidewalks, not just backlog projects?
You beat me to it, so thank you for the question. So it is not just ADA accessibility, although that is critically important and something the board cares deeply about because residents care deeply about that. The article is for sidewalk and ramp reconstruction. We are not building new sidewalks with this money. We are restricted by the purpose of the article from doing that. We build new sidewalks through other funding sources, especially state and federal grant programs. So this is not for new sidewalks. This is for reconstruction of existing sidewalks, and specifically it's Hollis Street this summer with the remaining appropriation, and it would be, and I've got the DPW Deputy Director up there, he's going to give me a thumbs up if I got it right. It is for Dalton Road up to Willowgate Rise, where there are sidewalks that have not been repaired in 25 plus years. That is the work that would be deferred. So it's reconstruction of a very large neighborhood with sidewalks that are in very poor condition and have not been touched since they were first installed. So again, no new sidewalks. Delaying this rises costs in the future.
Man, did you want to be heard up against the wall? Yes, please. Dan, I'll get you next. Thank you.
Danielle Kuhn, 51 Mitchell Road. Mine is a question about sidewalk projects in general, because this is specific to repairs and ADA compliance. And I'd like an update on the allocations for new sidewalk creation, especially on Central Street heading toward Dalton. As I understand, that was allocated quite some time ago, and we haven't gotten an update in a very long time on where those projects stand. So I know that is sort of adjacent to this specific article, but as we're talking about allocating sidewalk funds in general, I'd like to know where that stands.
Yes, go ahead, Tina, please. Thank you.
So new sidewalk specific on Central Street was a town meeting vote and a ballot question in 2023 related to the DPW. It was a debt exclusion. So the money was appropriated and voted for as a debt exclusion in 2023. The project timeline for the new sidewalk construction projects that you're referring to was Norfolk Street first, water mains, drainage, then sidewalks. Central Street second, water mains, then sidewalks. So later this month, the Norfolk Street water main and drainage portion of that project should start, with sidewalks on Norfolk Street coming in the spring of 2026. That is the timeline we have. Central Street would be the following year. So as an update, 2027.
Okay. Mr. Alford?
Dan Alford, 315 High Street. I found it very interesting that the chair of the select board finally came around to saying that this was not just for ADA compliance. And what's very interesting about that, though, is because when presented to the working group, and again, as a member of the working group, this was all about ADA compliance. And the Finance Committee supported the plan because we were concerned that we were out of compliance with our ramps and different areas of town and the sidewalks and curbs and cuts there. So I don't understand why we're now spending money on things that are not for ADA compliance, because that was, again, what the recommendation from the Finance Committee was way back when we did the working group. So, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, sir? Ma'am, excuse me. Yeah, I didn't see that clearly enough.
Hi, Barbara Ryan, 14 Irving Place. Don't we deserve walkability? Don't all people with different abilities deserve sidewalks to walk on? In the quick amount of time sitting here, I believe, and there's a lot of research to show, walkability impacts the economy. It impacts home values, typically increases, compared to car-dependent communities. So again, just consider that this will help people with different abilities get throughout our community. There could be potential economic positive impacts as well as home value impacts with better sidewalks for all. Thanks.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yeah, got him. Yep.
Good evening, Devin Howe, 10 Dixon Circle. Not necessarily advocating one way or the other, but really two questions. First being, is the sidewalk work contracted out, or is it done by the DPW? And then the second part of my question is, how is that compliance checked? My experience in the city recently has been that ADA compliance groups will go around with 2-foot digital levels, and developers throughout the city will end up ripping out hundreds of feet of sidewalk if they've constructed it deficiently. So what safeguards is the town taking to ensure that, you know, we're not put in that situation where they put all this sidewalk in, looks great, and then turns out it's just out of compliance, where literally a grain of salt could be the difference. Unfortunately, I've been on that receiving end before, and I can tell you it's really not fun. The other thing that I would just like to say is it drives me crazy when you see brand new sidewalk ramps and then you walk 10 feet down the sidewalk and it's cracked. It's deficient. It's kind of like, what's the point of mobilizing all that construction equipment to really not have a gain to it? So, thank you.
Thank you. Tina? It was two-part. Is it contracted out, and who checks the quality compliance?
So no contracts on work that would be funded through this appropriation tonight. We have contracts out for work with the remaining balance from the previous appropriations. So it's my understanding that Hollis Street is contracted for work because that's a prior appropriation. The work I referenced up on Dalton Road has not yet been contracted because it would need this evening's approval, which I hope we get. In terms of compliance, our compliance officer is the building inspector. If you're asking for an ADA compliance committee, we don't have one yet. That is something that the town can absolutely consider. So right now it's our building inspector. We don't follow a process similar to the city of Boston or the city of Worcester in terms of that level of detail, and I'm being honest when I say that. We follow MUTCD standards, we follow Mass DOT standards. Our DPW staff attend workshops through Mass DOT, particularly Complete Streets, streets. Our DPW Deputy Director was just at the Mass DOT Innovation Conference yesterday learning about techniques and so on. So we use best practices through our DPW operations on these projects, and we contract with an outside contractor who's held to that standard. So our DPW staff for the bigger projects is not doing it on their own. For the smaller projects, I believe in the past they have. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes?
Andres Vargas, 12 Kerr Street. I think there's very few people here who have walked the entirety of the town almost on a daily basis like I do. I have a big dog, I walk her every day, I try to take a different route every day. And I can tell you the sidewalks are not where we want them to be. We're missing a ton of sidewalks. I mean, the Queens is completely isolated from the rest of the town. If anything, we shouldn't be talking about cutting this budget in half. We should be talking about duplicating it. We should be talking about how we're going to get these sidewalks, all those cracks that the gentleman was talking about, fixed to have decent sidewalks. My neighbor's a 12-year-old kid who's in a sidewalk, and he goes in a wheelchair. He goes in a wheelchair every single day to school. So look at that kid in the eye and tell him that the money for the ADA compliance is going to be cut. Not me, him. If anything, we should put much more money into fixing them much quicker, into getting this town as a walkable, passable town, and really focusing on that. That's it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Ken?
Ken Shea, 676. Just wanted to make one comment about that. I think that what is being confused here is whether we do sidewalks at all or not. Nobody's saying don't do the sidewalks. I will point out, just since we've talked about ADA compliance, the Stantec report on which all this is based said that it would take $1.8 million to address every ADA compliance issue with the existing sidewalks. We've allocated over $3 million. The reason I mentioned the ADA compliance is because if we had said it was $1.8 million and we've allocated $3 million, and that was the #1 priority, then according to that report, we should have all the existing sidewalks should be ADA compliant by now. It is not just ADA compliance that's being done here. And again, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm not saying don't do sidewalks. What I'm saying is we have enough work allocated. The existing money, I already know from what I've been told from the town, will not be fully expended. The money that's already appropriated will not be fully expended until August 30th. Okay? So I think that there's confusion here that we're somehow saying don't do sidewalks or postpone. We're just saying there's enough work already on the docket for this summer. Give them the $500,000 to get as much as they can get done this summer, and then we'll see what we have in the fall for the remaining $500,000, and maybe more if we have better numbers than we expect. So just to be clear, our motion is not kill the sidewalk project or make it harder for anybody, right? The goal is, I think we're all in universal agreement, we want better sidewalks if we can get them, okay? The thing is, it's a matter of fiscal responsibility to say, we've got a full docket for the summer already, give them enough money to get through this summer, and then let's look at where we are in the fall. And as I said, if free cash is gigantic, maybe we look back and we say give them more than the other $500,000. We'll decide that in the fall. But with another $3 million or so, it's about 2.7, waiting for expenditure in the fall, we can't just say sidewalks are so important that we don't have fire trucks, that we don't have other capital equipment, we don't have ambulances, right? You just approved an ambulance earlier tonight, okay? Those things need consideration too. And giving $500,000 to continue the sidewalk, I think, is a fair deal, so to speak, to keep the project moving forward while we get a better picture of what monies we actually have to keep putting towards this. It's all about fiscal responsibility. It's not pro or anti-sidewalk, just to be clear. Thank you.
All right, let's proceed to a vote. I think the topic's been fairly discussed. The motion to amend seeks to reduce the appropriation from the requested $1 million in the underlying motion to $500,000 from the capital expenditure fund for sidewalk maintenance. All those in favor of the motion to amend to reduce the requested appropriation, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. That does not pass. We'll proceed to vote on the main motion. The main motion is to...
Hey, handcuff.
I'm sorry? Okay. Do we have tellers for each section now?
Yes, we do.
Okay, let's proceed to all those in favor of the... was it the motion to amend or the main motion?
Motion to amend.
The motion. All those in favor of the motion to amend, meaning reduce the requested appropriation from $1 million to $500,000, raise the hand up high.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's an echo in here.
Yeah, right.
31.
You got his number? Yeah?
The opposite, 3-1.
Okay.
Get my... I can't hear you. 6. 1-5.
Got them all?
Yep.
Okay, all those opposed?
78.
Okay. 11. 36. Right. One folder.
Okay. Those in favor of the motion to amend 78, those opposed 109. So that motion is defeated. We'll proceed to vote on the main motion, which called for the appropriation of $1 million. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That passes. Article 22, HDAAC opioid response initiatives. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds the sum of $29,000 for the purpose of maintaining the HDAAC portion of the opioid abatement fund at a total of $50,000 annually to ensure continued financial support for individuals and families impacted by substance use disorder. This funding will allow for the continuation of critical services such as transportation to treatment, housing stability assistance, and recovery-related expenses in alignment with the opioid settlement received by the town, or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved to raise and appropriate $29,000 for the purpose of maintaining the HDAAC portion of the opioid abatement fund. Is there a second? So noted. The Finance Committee recommends favorable action 5-1 with Mr. Vincent Murphy against and Mr. Matt Leach absent. Requires a majority vote. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Town engineer position development. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds for the purpose of hiring, onboarding, and establishing a town engineer, or take any action relative thereto. The explanation is such that over $1 million was spent in FY 2024 on professional and technical services related to engineering, GIS, and compliance was identified and reviewed to find efficiencies and cost savings. The town could realize significant savings and efficiencies with in-house engineering services on some phases of projects, reference the town manager memo. The motion is moved to transfer $135,000 from the Programmatic Stabilization Fund for the purposes of establishing, hiring, and onboarding a town engineer. Is there a second? It's open for discussion. Yes, Mr. Shader?
Ken Shada, 676 Fisk. This one is a little near and dear to me because I was involved in the creation of the Programmatic Stabilization Fund. For those of you who were here at that town meeting, when we talked about it, and this was something that I worked on with our former town manager, the idea was that there come times in town government where we need a little seed money to get something going when we can recognize a savings at a later date. Okay? A good example of this was the streetlight project. We didn't use it for this because we didn't have the fund at the time, but that's the kind of project this would be ideal for, where we sat there and said, we need to spend a certain amount of money to replace all the streetlights, but the cost savings is going to be every year after that when we go from incandescent to LED bulbs, right? Which has actually happened. Our cost for street lighting, the street lighting budget has come down dramatically because we replaced all the street lights. The idea was that the Programmatic Stabilization Fund would be a seed money fund like that, that when you took the money out, and this was written in the original article, if you go back and look at it, it was given in the explanation there, that if the money was to be used for things that either realized cost savings or other financial benefits, where those benefits could then be used to replenish the fund. In essence, for lack of a better phrase, almost like a town venture capital fund where we could invest in things that we would expect to bring back money later. ALS was what it was first used for. So we knew there was an investment that had to be made to bring the town up to ALS standards. We made that investment. And as a result of that investment, we now can bill at a higher rate for ALS ambulance services, right? So the intention is that now that we are ALS certified and that we get these higher revenues from it, that's a portion of those revenues will be used to pay back the fund and allow it to be used for other seed projects. That's the whole intent. When the town engineer position came up, and again, this is not an argument for or against the town engineer per se, but if you look at what the town administrator, town manager said before he left about it, we've heard this number bandied about of $1 million, $1.2 million in consulting services, right? But if you look at his analysis, he said that of all the consulting services that we spent in 2024, only $187,000 of it would have been covered by a town engineer. That's not to say we don't get one. I'm not arguing for or against it. But the cost of a town engineer without benefits, without pension and all the other costs would be very close to that, okay? Very close to that. And unlike other positions in town where we may look at the position and say, there's a direct function. We have a town clerk. We have a treasurer collector, things like that. The problem with the town engineer, and again, not arguing that we should never get one, is you have to look at it a little more carefully, because when you look back and say, geez, we could have saved all this money, they're generally on projects we're not doing every year. So, for example, we have the dam, all the work going on at Woodland Street. If we look at that and say, geez, we could have saved money if we had a town engineer. Well, the reality is in fiscal 26, we're not doing another Woodland Street. We're not going to do another Woodland Street for 40 years probably after we fix it this time, right? So there will be other work, but because the financial trade-off is so tight, it needs further work. In the same way that several years ago, when the facilities manager was first proposed, we had the same discussion, and we said, let's take a step back and let's do some more math, okay? Now, so as I said, on that alone, I'd like to wait on this position. There is nothing that is going to happen this summer that isn't already contracted. In fact, you talk about the DPW, they have $7 million to do all the work, right? So a town engineer at this point, doesn't really harm us too much if we wait till October. But the other side of this is the budgetary part of it. I mentioned before that we are going into the next fiscal year, not the one we just approved, but fiscal 27, with $500,000 of expenses we already know are going to come. If we pull money from the Programmatic Stabilization Fund to seed this, that means we're adding another $135,000 to that before we even start talking about level service in FY27. Why? Because the Programmatic Stabilization Fund does not have enough money, nor should it be used to fund operating expenses. We have to live within our means. This is an operating budget position. Okay? Right now, the operating budget cannot support it. And I will remind people that last year, because we had financial trouble, we added $250,000 to the operating budget, above what we usually do. Why? Because we reduced our OPEB contribution from $1.5 million to $1.25 million. Okay? So we've already added money into the operating budget. We have another $500,000 we know are going in, and now, because there's not room to put it in the operating budget, the decision was made to, let's just take it out of programmatic stabilization. So I would like to make a motion to indefinitely postpone this, to give us the opportunity to come up with a way to get it into the operating budget where it should go and fit in with all the other ongoing expenses of the town. Thank you. So I make a motion to indefinitely postpone.
Is there a second? Second. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Sparrow. The motion to definitely postpone will be debated now.
So by that, I can't answer the
Sure,
questions
go ahead.
that are
Oh,
proposed
absolutely.
by-
No, go right ahead. I'll
All
give you
right.
that latitude, sure.
All right, so I oppose indefinite postponement. I would prefer this body to be able to have the chance to debate the merits of the article as opposed to postponing, and I don't really personally like the idea of postponement because of that. We should have the opportunity to talk about it. I would
Mr.
like to-
Sparrow, let me
Yes.
make it clear. You're certainly free to talk about the underlying motion.
I understand, but I also want to
Go
say
ahead.
that too.
I don't want you to feel limited.
So I wanted to sort of speak to a few of the things that Dr. Shada had brought up, and I understand, some of his concerns about the budgetary concerns there. I would also add that there was he worked with the previous town administrator, Travis Ahern, who supported this. This was his idea, actually, to use the programmatic stabilization fund towards this. And there are a number of reasons that we can talk about. I mean, I'll go through a couple different things. I was trying to write down, because Ken brought up a lot of good points that I want to be able to talk to a few of them. The first thing I want to talk about when he talks about the $500,000 in pressure, I'll get a little wonky here in saying that the two things that I heard Dr. Shada bring up in a previous Finance Committee meeting was the movement towards the, it's called the REC for the, it's after 9 o'clock, so my brain is scrambled. But there was $160,000 for the REC, which is the yes, the emergency services. It's the for dispatch, and there was the $160,000 is more than made up for by additional revenue from the ambulance. We have, now that we are at ALS, where the ambulance revenue has increased, and that more than makes up that offset between FY26 and the projections for FY27. Further, some of the things that were concerns were Middlesex County pension, and we have a pension stabilization that's going to help offset some of those concerns. And when I had talked previously about some issues with bringing these things forward at the end of the process, if we had talked about this early in the process, we could have addressed some of those issues. Now, further, I would like to also mention, yes, the challenge here is that a lot of engineering services go through projects, which free cash, particularly in capital. But I would also mention, when Dr. Shada brought up that there's not any ongoing projects, there are several, as a matter of fact. We do water replacements several years. I believe for Norfolk Street, it was north of $200,000 in engineering services for Norfolk Street. We have Central Street coming up as next in the queue, and that will also incur an enormous amount of engineering services. I'm not saying all of it will be offset, but there will be substantial amounts of offset. We're also talking about sewers and putting in sewers, and sewers will require engineering as well if we're working in that direction. Never mind the fact that we have right now, since we do not have an engineering staff, we have a number of staff who are having to do engineering services, and it's not part of their job description. So, when our fire chief goes to a particular location, and because some of the engineering has not been updated from the previous articles we talked about with sidewalks and water main replacements, what we're seeing is that some of those updates are not being made with GIS management, and we have an issue with some of those things, and that would be some of the things that would come under the purview of an engineer. An engineer is going to help us save time and energy that a lot of our staff are putting into engineering that they don't have as part of their job description and things that need to be done. Never mind when the planning board has peer review for some of for some of the projects, we don't have anybody in-house doing that peer review. And one of the things we talked about, that culvert, that $500,000 culvert for the DPW, we were not able to apply for a grant of $400,000 because we did not have the engineer in-house. We didn't have the time to put it out to bid and to be able to apply for that. We lost out on $400,000 grant because that needs to be replaced immediately, and because we didn't have an engineer, we lost out on that. So I would just strongly urge people to consider the fact that there are substantial savings, and there's also lots of opportunity here within the organization to be able to create more efficiencies and to save our staff time. Our staff are doing a lot of work beyond what they are supposed to be doing, and they're doing things that are outside of the purview of their positions, and we need to be able to have this position in order to ensure that we provide the best services to the community. So, thank you.
Further discussion? Yes?
Melissa Casper, 109 Robert Road. I am a Parks Commissioner and also sit on the Community Preservation Committee. And in thinking of a town engineer, we often get requests for community preservation to spend money to do research, do studies, do engineering plans in order to move forward with projects. And it's something that we've funded in the past, but it's also not the best use of our funds. It would be better to put those funds towards actually doing the work and doing the projects. Off the top of my head, from a Parks Commission standpoint, I can think of 3 projects that we could have used an engineer and saved money and move things along faster. The Mission Springs, which we'll hear about, doing pickleball courts. We're looking into a bike park on the Woodland Street property that we need to have engineering work done to see what we can and cannot fit there. Also, the renovations to the old Flag School site that needed engineering work. So there's all these little projects that come up as well that if we had an engineer on staff, they might not be able to do the whole project, but they could get us started. They could take on some of that burden of the initial work, which I think would be amazing. Again, these are just a few things off the top of my head. Between state allocations and some of the park revolving fund this year, we spent $70,000 on engineering work in order to see if projects were even feasible. So this is money that we're putting out to see if projects are feasible. I'd rather see the money we have going towards getting these projects done, and having an engineer work for the town, I think would be a huge benefit.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Hi, Pam Seco, 185th Street. My question would be, how are you funding it for the following years? And how much would that really cost? That would be my question.
Go ahead, Ben. Thank you.
We work it into the budget. It would be worked into the budget in future years.
Then how come it wasn't worked into the budget this year? If it's so important, why wasn't it in the budget?
The reason why is because right now we're trying to work through getting the position established and hiring that position, and the programmatic stabilization allowed us to have that seed money, because right now what happens is the engineering money is coming through capital. It's not coming directly through the omnibus, so I understand, but the space would come in the future. Plus, having somebody on staff would be able to look at other budgets within the omnibus right now, within our budget, to be able to see if there's other opportunities for savings to realize those savings.
By the definition of the money that it's coming out of, it shouldn't be coming out of that budget. It shouldn't be coming out of the programmatic. It should be coming out of the omnibus budget, right? Shouldn't be coming out of that.
Yeah, but the purpose of the programmatic is to be able to do things like this, is to be able to realize those savings. I was going to ask that if we look at the actual reading of the programmatic stabilization fund, one of the areas that the savings that we would be realizing is within the budget and within capital, and this would save substantial amounts of capital.
I can see the savings in the rec department, because then they wouldn't have to spend the $70,000 and they can use it for something else, or we could take that out of their budget and use it for something else. But if we're going to be having an engineer on staff, then I just want it to be in the omnibudget. I just want it to be in the budget.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll come back to you, Ken. Yes, miss. Yeah. You were blocked from my view by Mr. Blaze, unintentionally.
Thank you. Allison Quinnen, 37 Pilgrim Road. Sort of along the lines of what Pam said. So if you can just clarify for me. So you're asking for the money from the Programmatic Stabilization Fund for this first year of this position, expecting to realize savings in this first year to go back into the programmatic stabilization fund that would replenish that fund, and thereafter expect to fund an ongoing annual salary out of an operational budget. Is that correct?
Yes, and the other thing to remember here.
Speak into the microphone.
Yes, yes, and also the other thing to remember here too is that part of the savings would come through the water budget as well. So it's not just through the omnibus, it's also through the water budget too.
Ken, did you want to be heard again?
Yes, me again. Just to be clear, as I said from the beginning, I'm not arguing against the position. Okay? I'm not arguing against it at all. It's kind of, I don't want the debate to just focus on me getting up here and saying, don't hire a town engineer. But they pointed to the town manager's report, and as I said, I was intimately involved in the creation of the Programmatic Stabilization Fund, and it says very clearly in the objective there that a plan has to be presented to repay the fund. We haven't seen one. We haven't seen any proposal of how the money, of specifics of this is where we expect to see savings. This is how we expect to get it into the operating budget. Okay, so, and again, so that's why I said I'm not, Melissa made a good point. But the other thing I'll point out is an engineer, and I am one, okay, an engineer is not an interchangeable part. As Travis himself pointed out in his analysis, there was $1.2 million of engineer that we spent on engineering services. Sounds like a big number. You might say, hire an engineer, we save all that money. Then he looked at the details and he said, all this engineering requires special certifications that you have to hire out. An engineer, a civil engineer, is not an electrical engineer, is not a mechanical engineer. Civil engineers have different branches that they're certified for. Okay, so I agree that we may hire a town engineer, and again, I'm not opposed to hiring a town engineer. However, I think the savings, we have to be careful in saying, well, we used engineering services and we could just replace them. Travis himself said only less than 10% of the money we spent on engineering services could be replaced by a town engineer because all the other 90% required special certifications that would still have to be paid for. Okay? Now, having said that, I personally support getting a town engineer. However, they talked about ALS and the ambulance. You know how much has been paid back to the Programmatic Stabilization Fund since we got ALS certification? Zero. Zero. There hasn't been a dollar deposited. You haven't seen an article putting money back in programmatic stabilization, have you? Because we're just starting to realize the savings, right? So before, when somebody sits there and says, well, we're going to get all this ambulance revenue, and that's how we're going to pay for the town engineer, you haven't even paid the Programmatic Stabilization Fund back yet. Okay? So as I said, this is not, do we get an engineer or not? I think we should get an engineer, but I think that we have to do it the right way. Travis suggested using a programmatic stabilization fund and then using free cash, which is an even worse way to support an ongoing annual salary, to say we're just going to rely on excess funds that show up every year to do that. We worked very hard as a town to eliminate the use of free cash for our ongoing expenses because that makes our budget stronger. That makes us less susceptible to sudden changes in the economy, which we kind of see going on a lot now, right? So I would strongly encourage that we just postpone this. It's not going to be a problem to take a little more time to get it into the budget the right way so that we can come to you in either October or May of next year and say, we got a balanced budget and we have a town engineer and we don't have to ding programmatic stabilization. We don't have to worry about paying it back. And we've done the analysis to say, this is exactly how we can recognize the savings. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Fran Hartwich. I live at 239 Concord Street. I am an engineer. I have a master's degree. I'm a systems engineer. I can't do the job for the town. What you're looking for is a managing engineer, one who can go off to subs and say, your price is too high, or I have 3 different offers. This one's better. We'll take this one. And that'll reduce, let's say, some of the costs. Looking at qualifications, you're going to need civil engineers. We're going to be able to say that this protected structure is going to be stable, this bridge is stable. You discuss things like lighting. Well, that's kind of in my background too. I could have done that, but the darn thing you run into is that you have people who actually do the calculations of lumens on the street, downlighting to make sure that we don't have destruction of night skies. Those sort of specialties you won't get in a town engineer, but they'll be able to talk the language. That's what you want. So you need this person not out of the, let's say, pulling out of the stabilization fund. You need him employed, and you won't get a direct payback, but you will find that costs on some of the jobs are going to get reduced. Someone may come over and say, oh, well, we can replace this plumbing here, or, oh, did you realize that we have this copper, for instance, water supplies now? We're talking about copper pipes in there. What should we be running? There is a significant breadth of specialties that have to be covered. But this town managing engineer will be able to talk the language to the other companies and say, okay, yeah, you know, your bid's right. Okay, we can do that, or maybe you shouldn't be replacing every ADA compatible ramp here with the plastic ramps here. You can put a steel ramp in there, or I can see the sidewalk has to be replaced beyond this 30 feet that you're working on. Continue on, was that another 10%? We can handle that sort of thing. So those sort of trade-offs your managing engineer will be able to make, and they will know who to call. That's the other thing you run into. So you're looking for someone to say, oh, you know, I need to get that truck replaced or repaired for the highway department. Can we get a new transmission for it or so? I can't, he won't be able to replace the transmission, but he'll be able to work the call. So this is what you need as a manager that actually can say, this is the work we have to parcel out. Let's see what we can do in reducing the costs. So I agree with the town right now. Don't take the money out of the stabilization fund because you can't get him for 135. Be perfectly honest. You're looking at someone who's got years of experience. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Tina, you want the last word? You're all set. Get in. All right. What's that? Chief, you want to be heard? Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I stand here before town meeting and ask you to vote against indefinite postponement. As a department head, I was on a working group which included the IT director, the finance director, the conservation agent, the facilities director, who is involved in procurement, which the previous speaker was discussing, the town planner, the building inspector, the assistant town manager, the DPW director, and the principal assessor. All of these department heads, as part of a working group, were unanimously in favor of the creation of this position, and it doesn't need to be delayed. If you look in the warrant materials that were provided, at the end of fiscal year 25, the balance that is projected for the Programmatic Stabilization Fund on page 51 is $247,469. So if town meeting were to appropriate the $135,000 from Programmatic Stabilization as proposed in the underlying motion, then there would still be money. Earlier, a member of the Finance Committee said, have you seen any money paid back to the Programmatic Stabilization Fund? Well, I'd like to explain why that hasn't happened. The town was very fortunate that the taxpayers, members of town meeting, invested in, through the Programmatic Stabilization Fund and through the omnibus budget, increases to the fire department and ambulance budgets, which allowed us to obtain our ALS ambulance service license. We obtained that ambulance service license on October 4th. So on October 4th, we started to be able to transport patients at the ALS level, which allowed us to, on October 4th, start billing people, billing insurance companies more specifically, at the ALS service level, which means we have higher revenues. By the time insurance companies pay us when we bill them, that money starts to trickle in January. There's about a 3-month lag between when the service is received to when we get the money from the insurance companies. I can assure you that when you look at our revenue from the ambulance service on June 30th, at the end of this current fiscal year, it will far exceed the very conservative estimates that were built into the budget model for the current fiscal year that we're in. And the time that those monies will be paid back to the Programmatic Stabilization Fund from free cash will be October. So I urge you to vote down the indefinite postponement and to support the creation of this position so that the town can continue to work more efficiently and better use our resources.
All right, let's proceed to a vote on the motion to indefinitely postpone. That requires a majority vote. All those in favor of indefinite postponement say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. Okay, that motion fails. We'll proceed to the main motion to move to transfer $135,000 from the Programmatic Stabilization Fund for the purpose of establishing, hiring, and onboarding a town engineer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. That prevails. Article 24, report of the Community Preservation Committee. To see if the town will vote to act on the report of the Community Preservation Committee for the fiscal year 2026 community preservation budget and to appropriate a reserve for later appropriation monies from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues or available funds for the administrative expenses of the Community Preservation Committee, the payment of debt service, the undertaking of community preservation projects, and all the necessary and proper expenses for the year. With respect to reserves, the requests are Community Housing Reserve, $92,116, Open Space Reserve, $92,116, Historic Resources Reserve, $92,116. With respect to appropriations, administrative functions to support the committee, $5,000, Holliston Historical Society Barn ADA Restroom, asbestos abatement, $18,838. Pickleball at Mission Springs, $115,000, for a total of $138,838. The motion is moved to appropriate the sum of $138,838 from the Community Preservation Fund general balance for the administrative expenses and project appropriations as printed in the warrant, and to authorize the allocation of $92,116 from the Community Preservation Fund for each of the three required reserves as stated in Article 24. Is there a second? The FinCom will make a recommendation at town meeting, so I'll accept the FinCom's recommendation. Then I understand the commission wants to make a brief presentation. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, the commissioner, the chair of the committee came before the FinCom before this meeting, and we voted, we heard what he said, and we're all in favor, so we recommend favorable passage of this article.
Thank you. Does the Community Preservation Committee wish to be heard? Yes? Okay. Is that Mr. Chamberlain? Mr. Chamberlain, I'll be right back. No, don't hurry on my account. I'll be right back.
We'll keep this short. Frank Chamberlain, 333 Hollis Street, Chair of the Community Preservation Committee. Just very quickly, we voted to support two projects with this spring cycle. One is for additional funding for the Holliston Historical Society to support the creation of ADA restrooms in their barn. This was a project that the commission, that the CPC voted on and voted to support, and the town voted to support a year or so ago. Unfortunately, when they began to do the work, they ran into an issue with asbestos that raised the cost slightly, so they've come back to ask for a little more money to finish the project. If any of you have had a chance to be in the Historical Society barn recently, the project is complete and it looks really good, and it adds another resource to the town, and it fits in with the historic preservation aspect of community preservation, the Community Preservation Act. With regard to the pickleball courts at Mission Springs, if anyone has any questions regarding that, I believe the Recreation Director, Mark Frank, is here and can answer your questions for you. But this is something that clearly the Parks and Recreation Department has received a lot of demand for, and we're happy to support this request. Just in case people are wondering, I note that in the warrant it mentions a $1.7 million article from that was approved in October 20. Actually, it was approved in October 24, being extended till October 2026. I think this is a misprint. This is with regard to the Goodwill Park project that was approved at last fall's town meeting, and we do not need to extend at this time. We're not asking for it to be extended at this time because the appropriation as voted last fall was for 2 years. The project is underway. It's on time. There is no need to extend at this time. So If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise than that, I'll shut up and go back to my seat. Questions? Nope? All right, good.
Thank you for that brief presentation, Mr. Chamberlain. I'm not going to say it's a first, but it's welcome. No problem. Well done. Further discussion? Okay, if not, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 25, Open Space and Recreation Plan, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate a transfer from available funds for the purpose of updating the town's open space and recreation plan through the use of consulting services or take any action relative thereto. The motion is moved to raise and appropriate $30,000 for the purpose of updating the town's open space and recreation plan through the use of consulting services as stated in Article 25. Is there a second? Thank you. The FinCom recommends that the town raise and appropriate $30,000 for the purpose stated in the article, 6-0 with Mr. Leach absent. Requires a majority vote. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, so voted. Water main easement, Indian Ridge Road South, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to acquire by, gift, purchase, or eminent domain, right to use the drainage easement shown on the plan of Indian Ridge Road recorded at Book 995, page 112, for all proposed easement improvements and modifications for which easements are used in the town of Holliston. Location and center of the easement, 10 Indian Ridge Road. The motion is moved to authorize the Select Board to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain the right to use the drainage easement shown on the plan of Indian Ridge Road recorded at Book 995, page 112, for all purposed easement improvements and modifications for which easements are used in the town of Holliston. Is there a second? Yes? Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am, you want to be heard? Go right ahead. This will require a 2/3 majority vote when we come to a vote. Go right ahead, miss.
So I'm Cecile Freilich, and I live at
Yeah,
Indian.
give us your name, please, and speak up so everybody at home can hear you and here too. Thank you.
My name is Cecile Freilich, and I live at 10 Indian Ridge Road, and so the easement is on my property. So I'm totally for the project. That is, seems like it'll increase water pressure in the area, which everyone seems to want. What I do want to bring up are two things. One is the process. So this really started in 2020 when the land adjacent to me was zoned for 24 houses to be built, and everyone knew that water was going to be a problem, among other things. That passed, and I inquired at that time, and I was told that no, that my easement was not going to be changed, and I was not going to be affected. That property was then sold to another builder who now wants to build 40 houses on the same property, and so of course the water issue is even more important, and that's why this issue has come. One of my biggest issues, I think the water main has to be built. One of my biggest issues is in the 5 years that this has been going on, no one has reached out to me as a owner of this property to say that this is being planned, that this will affect us in some way, that it is going through our property, and I just don't think that's right. Now, I did reach out to the director of the DPW, who initially, Sean Reese, who initially denied that there was going to be any water main going through my easement, but more recently agreed that the town was planning to do it, and I don't really have much to say about it. The other issue I have is the wording, the kind of legalese wording that says that they're going to acquire it by give, purchase, or eminent domain. I mean, it seems to me that I paid for this property, this acreage is part of my property, and I don't really think this is an appropriate way of acquiring what the town wants, so.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Solnia.
Paul Solnia, 29 Church Street. This proposed water main construction, I'm assuming that it's going to be paid for by the developer of the subdivision rather than the town, because typically that's what happens when a subdivision is built, the water main is extended, and the developer pays for the cost of that. Is that the case in this case? It doesn't say here on the warrant.
Anybody on the select board in a position to answer that yet, Tina?
I'm coming up to speed on the backup materials for this article. I'm going to ask our DPW director to come down and speak to it. He has the details. Sean, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Sean Reese, DPW Director, to answer your question. Yeah, the developer is going to pay for the cost for the 200 feet installation of the water main. Okay?
Thank you. Sean, thank you for attending tonight, being able here to answer that for us. Thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, and again, this requires a 2/3 majority, so let's see how the vote goes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. That's unanimous for the record. Home Rule Petition, Local Voting, Article 27, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Select Board to petition the legislature for passage of a special act substantially in the following form. It's an act permitting the town of Holliston to enact local bylaws allowing permanent legal residents to vote in local elections. The precise language of the article is set forth. The precise language of the article is set forth in the warrant. The explanation offered is as follows. This Home Rule petition does not grant voting rights, but rather requests that the state legislature provide municipalities with the authority to make that decision through their local-owned democratic processes. Currently, permanent legal residents, PLRs, defined as non-citizen individuals who are lawfully residing in the United States under permanent resident status, live, work, and raise families in the town of Holliston, and yet are ineligible to vote in any elections. The motion is as follows. Move to authorize the Select Board to petition the legislature for passage of a special act substantially as presented in the article, and to authorize the Select Board to accept ministerial amendments to such act as may be required by the legislature. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Mr. Dimmick, want to be identified as the sponsor? You want to speak on this? Thank you.
Good evening. Damon Dimmick, 4 Tea Party Lane. I am the clerk of the Select Board. Our moderator has amply introduced this very well, but earlier this evening, someone did ask for plain English, so why don't I do a version of that here. The language is constructed because it will go to the state in a very specific way, but for us folks here, let's break it down. So what is and isn't this? The Home Rule petition asks that the state legislature grant Holliston the permission to decide through a local vote whether permanent legal residents should be allowed to vote in our municipal elections. So what it does, it seeks state approval to let us decide at a later time through a vote here, and applies only to town elections, school committee, etc. It does not grant voting rights directly. It does not apply to state or federal elections, Congress, etc. It does not force the town to decide. It only allows us in the future to vote in a democratic fashion. So the petition is both symbolic as well as practical. We would be joining a handful of other towns in the state, including Somerville, Newton, Brookline, a few others, who have discussed or submitted similar requests. The state has not approved any of them so far and is unlikely to do so in the near future, but there is a growing ask for this. So progress is uncertain, but it is meaningful. The Holliston version, the version that we're actually supporting, stands out because it doesn't lock us into a position. Some of the other towns have locked themselves into the position of, we want this, and as soon as the state enacts it, we're going to do it. Ours is more nuanced, and the focus is on local control. So it appeals across the political spectrum, both to folks who are fans of more localized government and to those who are fans of inclusion. I will rest there because hopefully this will be well supported. I know that it is a constant source of some conversation in some parts of this town. We've tried to think it through, reach out to people of very different political opinions, and we are hoping that we have threaded the needle to allow Holliston to decide on this matter in the future and get a permission essentially to have a democratic debate that right now we cannot have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Yes, go right ahead.
Hi, Carla Alfred, 315 High Street. You know it's serious if I wrote something down, so
I'm sorry, did you say you were serious or you were not?
I am serious.
Oh, okay, I assume so.
Rarely put something down. Very serious.
Go right ahead, I couldn't hear you. Thank you.
I know we're almost at Thursday, so I'm going to try to be brief. But I'm here because I know most of you. We spend a lot of time together, and I'm glad for it. You know, I know you from Historical Society and the PTO and the library. I see a lot of lions out there really late at night, so congratulations on that representation. And we're all consistent members of our community, including the back corner there. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight, because our community is what it is because of the people in it. We choose to raise families here. We choose to grow old here in this town, and we do it for a reason. We aren't all here tonight because we had nothing else going on. We're here because we prioritize our community. And this, at its core, our nation was founded on the principle that those who are taxed should be represented, and we have a subset in our community of our friends, of our neighbors, and our loved ones who are not represented. These are the permanent legal residents. They pay taxes. They are on committees with us. They are members of our societies, and they are right there volunteering and doing the work with us. They're the people that you love, you can count on, and they make up a large piece of what we all here find important. And they're here tonight without the ability to vote, without having the same equal say that we have. So tonight, as a community, we have the opportunity to do right by our friends and neighbors and support this article. So let's uphold what at our core is, I know it's not the full, you did a great job of breaking it down. Let's take that tiny first step into giving these, our neighbors, the opportunity for the right to represent themselves, and all of us in town government, in town meeting, and be part of the whole discussion on an equal playing field. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
John Barstow, 230 Mellon Street.
Come on down, ma'am. I'm sorry, go right ahead.
A question, did you consider and reject, or would you be open to adding to vote in local elections and town meetings? This is the most basic democratic action we have in the town, or it's equally democratic with our local elections. And as I remember, the check-in is not just, are you a resident, but are you, is it not a voter? Or am I mistaken, and lawful permanent residents can vote at town meeting? Anyway, I would ask that you consider amending it to add town meetings to local elections.
believe this is someone's pen. Definitely don't want to lose that. Overpriced. Generically speaking, I tried to craft an article that I thought could get the broadest support in the town, recognizing that there are folks who may or may not be comfortable with all levels of inclusion, although I think that we are definitely tilting in that favor. The article is really crafted to be part of the conversation at the state legislature to get that inertia going. There are a few towns that have added their voice, so my intent is really to add to that bulwark of conversation, and then after that, should we get that permission, all the things that you're talking about, all the different levels of inclusion, they return back to the town as something that we can vote on at the time. So if folks on the floor want to make that amendment, of course, that's always up to anyone at town meeting. Amendments can be added at any time. I just specifically crafted it to make it the most portable, the most easy to understand, and to get it through as quickly as possible. And I'm trying to be very pragmatic about it. Hopefully you appreciate the openness. My brand is honesty, so that's where I'm at.
Right. Thank you.
Cool.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Pooja Gupta. I'm a resident at 105 Overlook Drive. And I know it's pretty late, but this has been a discussion I've been having with town for 2 years. So if you can give me a few minutes to put my perspective out there.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
It's not that late, okay? We're here, we only meet once a year, so I want you to take your time and express yourself. Don't feel pressured by time. Say what you want to say, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think Damon and Thala has put across the opinion of the citizens, right? I'm on the other side of this article. I am that legal permanent resident who doesn't have a voice in the town right now. So what I'm going to talk about right now is where I come from and why we are talking about this right now, right? So I have been a Holliston resident for 8 years now. I have been in the US for about 20 years, out of which 8 years I am a Holliston resident. And this town really feels like home to me, my husband and my family. We love our small town. I try to give back wherever we can. I've been a part of the Lions for 6 years now. I'm part of the Holliston Cultural Club for 4 years. And then my husband serves on a local board as well. Why am I saying all of this? Because we can volunteer where we can, but where I am surprised is that being that legal permanent resident, we are not allowed to vote in our town's municipal local elections. Let's be very specific. It's just the town municipal local elections. We're not talking state, we're not talking anything else. Just the town where we are paying taxes. Over the few years, there have been important decisions that affect our daily lives. School overrides, bus schedules, local services, but we didn't have any chance to have a voice in those discussions, including many people like me who are not a US citizen. Okay, so now let me take a moment to clarify who legal permanent residents are. We are individuals who came to the United States on valid visas and have been granted the legal right to become permanent residents and eventually US citizens. Please note, when we become US citizen, we are giving up the citizenship for the country we come from. So just keep that in mind, okay? And we live here, we raise our families here, we pay the same local taxes as any other resident in town. The same amount that my neighbor pays, I pay the same amount. With this article, what we are asking Holliston to take a step forward, begin a conversation about extending local rights to legal permanent residents. Other towns, as Damon was mentioning, has already taken that step. Why now? Because the path to citizenship can be extensively long. For me, it took almost 16 years to get a green card. And then it'll be another 5 years before I'm going to become a citizen. So I'm talking about 2 decades. And for people who are waiting in the queue, we don't even know what that timeline looks like. It can be decades, it can be more than that, okay? So some may wonder, why talk about this town at town level if the state isn't addressing it yet? The answer is simple. Massachusetts has 300 towns. Unless the majority of them are advocating for this change, the conversation will never reach the state level. It has to start somewhere, and I believe Holliston can be part of that example. Let's be inclusive and forward-thinking town we know we are. Let's acknowledge the gap in the current system and take the first steps forward, giving legal permanent residents a voice in the place they call home. Thank you.
Further discussion? Yes, sir.
John Boristow, 230 Mellon Street. I would like to amend the article as presented by inserting the words "and town meetings" in section 3.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yep.
Before the semicolon at the end. So to vote in local elections and town meetings.
Okay, is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? That stands. Any further discussion on the underlying motion? The motion would read, move to authorize the Select Board to petition the legislature for passage of a special act substantially as presented in the article, and I'll add now as amended to include the language that the gentleman offered with respect to town meeting, and to authorize the Select Board to accept ministerial amendments to such act as may be required by the legislature. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 28 was covered. Article 28 was covered by the consent agenda, so we can move to Article 29. General bylaw, demolition delay bylaw, but sponsored by the Select Board, to see if the town will vote to amend its general bylaws by replacing Article XXIV, Section 10, demolition delay, with the following bylaw entitled Preservation of Historically Significant Buildings. And the article runs a number of pages with technical language describing demolition delay. And the motion is to move to amend the general bylaws by replacing Article XXIV, Section 10, demolition delay, with the amended language as presented in the warrant. Is there a second? The FinCom recommend favorable action, 6-0 with Matt Leach absent. The explanation offered is that the intent is to use the permit funds to formally record the property prior to demolition for historical purposes. And if one had taken the time to examine the article in the warrant, you'll see that it depicts the process before you can take down a building, I gather, that has historical significance and requires some careful examination of that process. Okay, is there discussion?
Yes, Sarah wants to speak.
Yes, go right ahead.
Good evening. Sarah Zarelli, 79 Northway Street, Chair, Historical Commission. I do just want to briefly introduce this. I know it's late, but I want to run through this quickly here. I think we have a few slides, theoretically. Fantastic. So preservation of historic buildings bylaw, or a demolition delay bylaw, is a chance for a community to gently tap the brakes on the demolition of significant historic buildings and to allow for more time to find different solutions. So in practice, it helps communities protect the places that matter to them. And in Holliston, we know from our outreach and our surveys that there are lots of places that make this place special and unique that people want to protect. And these are just a few of those places that we've heard from our outreach and the Envisioning Future Holliston surveys that are important. In Massachusetts, there are about 160 communities. They're shown here in green tonight. Holliston is circled in red that have this demolition delay bylaw. Holliston passed it in 2006, showing its commitment to preservation. And we're here tonight because about 20 years on, there are a few things that we need to fix in order to keep our commitment to preservation strong. So what, in fact, is actually wrong with this bylaw? Well, for one thing, there is too much red tape. We've heard clearly from applicants and the building inspector that the process is unclear and hard to administer. And frankly, it's difficult for the Historical Commission as well. We're not getting the information we need to make timely decisions. And believe it or not, this bylaw actually will apply to too many buildings. The current bylaw is rolling. Anything that is 75 years or older, it applies to. So that means in this year that anything built in 1950 or before will qualify. And this is going to lead to a tidal wave of applications over the next few years because about 40% of homes in Holliston were built between 1950 and 1969. And while these are great places to live, they are places that the preservation field is pretty confident are currently not necessarily worth preserving on their architectural merits. But it would have a huge impact on residents here in Holliston. So I know we've raised our hands a lot tonight, but humor me and let's do it again. Raise your hand and keep it up if you live in the Queens. Okay, got a few folks. How about the Orchards? That's Norland Street, Regal Street, Woodland Street. Anybody living in Brentwood? So that is the Underwood Street area. A few people, excellent. How about Harvestdale, Highland Street, Prospect Street? Anybody in Strawberry Hill? Great name, Norfolk Street. Skyview Terrace, off of Central. So all of the folks who raised your hands, you would be impacted if we don't amend this bylaw. And for those of you who didn't raise your hands, these are your neighbors that would be impacted. And last, the delay that we have right now is actually too short. With a six-month delay period, there just isn't enough time to find workable solutions, and it's not enough encouragement to bring owners, particularly developers, to the table to think about solutions. So if we vote yes tonight, what's going to change? First of all, we will have a new application process. For the first time, there'll actually be an application to fill out, which will streamline the process, remove the building inspector as the middleman, and get the commission the information it needs sooner. We have also worked to streamline the process, taking as much as 60 days off the total decision time. We'll also be assessing a $100 fee, which will go into a revolving fund. And yes, spoiler alert, that is the next article, that will allow for the commission to fund documentation of at-risk buildings or buildings for which we cannot find another solution that we deem historically significant. And just as important, it will set the period of significance to 1950. This does two really good things. First of all, it keeps everything that is currently protected, and then it also allows us to focus on the buildings and the places that really matter to this community and that make Holliston a special and unique place that you know when you step into. Holliston feels different. It doesn't look like other towns. We're also asking for a longer delay period. We're moving to an 18-month period, which is in keeping with the best practices in the field and is the recommendation of the Massachusetts Historical Commission. And 18 months is also in alignment with our neighboring communities. As you can see here, with a 6-month delay period, we are actually out of step with our neighbors who have delays. Most of them are using a 12 to 24-month period, so our 6-month period is really pretty short in comparison. So we believe that these changes that we are proposing will keep the intent of the 2006 bylaw, will reaffirm our community's commitment to preservation, and set us up for successful preservation activities in our community for the next few years. Thank you.
Thank you. Did a far better job of explaining that article than I did off the cuff. Any further discussion with respect to this article? Yes, sir. Mr. Donovan, you look younger than ever.
You're lying. Phil Donovan, 865 Washington Street. My question and concern with the bylaw is we've had going on 20 years of historical data of this being in effect since 2006. While many around us may have 12 to 18 months of a delay time, as I understand it in my research, in the state of Massachusetts, the most used period of time for delay with these bylaws is 6 months, which we currently have. When I was going through the town webpage, and the Historical Commission says within the reasoning for why we should do this is that they need more time than the 6 months to do it. My question is, in actuality, how many times have you bumped up against that 6-month demolition delay time? I've done some research, and I don't know of, I couldn't come up with anything that did not, I don't know how to say this correctly, but that bumped up against that 6-month time where that you needed to go to 18 months. You had to extend it to almost 550 days for a homeowner. We all tend to have our largest expenses beyond our children is our homes and houses, and 550 days is a lot of time to be stuck in limbo. So that's just my points. I don't know why we have to change the current law from 6 months, or the bylaw from 6 months to 18 months.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Sarah Zarelli, 79 North Way Street. Based on our research from the Massachusetts Historical Commission, over 60% of communities have 12 months or more across the state. And I do have a graph that is the very last slide in this presentation, if the tech support could put that up for me. Thank you. So in relation to the period, I want to be very clear that it is up to 18 months. And we work very hard with any applicant who comes before us to find a solution sooner than that. Our goal is always to find a way for a project to proceed that satisfies both the applicant's desire to make changes to their property, but also our desire to protect some of our town's historic resources. It is always our goal to find a solution and lift that demolition delay as soon as we can. Nonetheless, 6 months does not give us enough time to really find workable solutions to the complex problem that might include selling the structure to another owner, moving it to another site, or figuring out how to reuse materials on the site. And that 18 months gives us time to fully explore those different options while also acknowledging that it can be lifted as soon as we can come to an agreement. And our goal is always to find that agreement.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, sir. I'm sorry, Phil, you want to respond? Come on down, so I'll get you next, after Mr. Donovan.
Phil Donovan, 865 Washington Street. So it's a theoretical problem at 6 months, not an actual problem at 6 months. You're projecting that it may be a problem, but it hasn't been in 19 years. Am I correct in that? And 18 months is only 39, there's 39 less communities at 18 months than there are at 6 months.
Okay. Next. Yes, sir.
Devin Howe, 10 Dixon Circle. I think this town has to really think a lot about the red tape that they're raising. I myself live in the Queens area, and I do a lot of work with developers. And the way that I see this proposed bylaw as it's written right now is by trying to extend it to that 18-month time period. What this town's doing, not only with this bylaw, but some other bylaws that I've spoken out against, is we're keep raising this red tape. I myself was on the Norfolk Zoning Board of Appeals for 5 years. Probably dealt with numerous 40B projects. Not sure how many people are familiar in this town with that. But in other words, the town loses all ability really to regulate a development project. So one example in Norfolk was they were proposing 200 units of housing on the Buckley and Mann mill site. So the way that I really see this bylaw is it's just another red tape. Developers are going to look at it, they're going to laugh. My clients would probably laugh at it, and they just wouldn't see a project being economically viable. While it's been suggested that the commission would seek to find a solution as fast as they can, that's not the reality. I've worked on projects before, won't name the towns, but towns have looked to preserve barns, houses. They just get left abandoned. It's a sad reality, but without a funding source to upkeep these places, they just sit there. We'll carve them out for towns, literally pretty much beg towns to take those properties, but they don't want it. So the way that I see this is, again, it's raising more red tape in town. I brought up the Queens because there's a 40B project being proposed adjacent to our property. Not necessarily against it, for it, but the way that I look at it is this town continues to raise that red tape, make it so difficult to developers that this town believes that developers will pay for this stuff. It's not the reality. I would make a motion to reduce the 18-month date to 6 months. Thank you.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second? Okay, it's open for discussion with respect to the motion to amend to reduce the stated period from 18 months to 6 months. Yes, Ms. Ryan?
Good evening, Barbara Ryan, 14 Irving Place. I just want to share my experience. I live on, I believe, one of the most idyllic streets in town, Irving Place, and my husband and I are involved in a large project with our home. And when we triggered Section 10 earlier this year, we thought we had gotten through all the wickets. And in our experience, it felt daunting, but I felt the Historic Commission, again, I speak to my experience, was open, fit us in a schedule, talked with us, guided us. We met with them, and thankfully, half my house is still standing because it's considered historic. It was actually the Baptist parsonage, and it's a 1721 deed with an 1804 on the building. And then one of the Historical Society folks said, no, that can't be possible. It's probably built in 1850. So I have an old home before 1950. The Historic Commission worked very closely with us and as expediently as they felt the process should be in honoring that my husband and I thought we were about to turn dirt. But we worked together. We made our presentation. They worked with us. And thankfully, half of my house is now designated, preferably preserved, because of its maybe not very historic from an architectural perspective, because it looks like a lot of Mudville houses, but it has such rich history because it was a parsonage. So once the house is built, maybe we'll have a party in Irving Place and we can share in the joy. But I found them to have worked with us. The 6 months felt daunting, but I found the Historic Commission worked really well to hear our intentions and then supported us. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chamberlain, I think you were next. Come on. I'll get you, sir, after Mr. Chamberlain.
Thank you. Frank Chamberlain, 333 Hollis Street, Vice Chair of the Historical Commission. Just wanted to point out a couple of examples of properties. The gentleman, I think, had raised a question about what properties in town had we lost as a result of a failure to fully utilize our existing demolition delay period. I can think of two, at least just off the top of my head. One is Brooksmont Farm. Those of you who've lived in town a while remember Brooksmont Farm. It was what's known as a century farm. In other words, it had been in the same family for over 100 years. This was on Concord Street, and the barn and the house were raised as part of a development. Unfortunately, a 6-month delay period does not allow sufficient time to engage with the developer and find a solution. Our hopes at that time had been to engage the developer, to get them to incorporate at least the barn, which was in good condition, into a new development, into the new project, and we were unsuccessful in doing that. There's no incentive in a 6-month delay period for the developer to do that. Another example would be 3 Fruit Street, which is now a parking lot. Again, this was an example of affordable rental housing, which is something that the town can use, and something that the town is desperately short of. And again, because the developer was unwilling to engage with the commission to discuss possible alternatives, this building and the apartments it housed were lost. So I would ask the town to vote against the amendment. I think we have the idea of a 6-month delay period we've determined from experience is basically meaningless, and what we need is the longer period. And as Sarah pointed out, it's highly unlikely that we would ever exactly use the full 18 months. We would hope not. We'd hope that would not be necessary, but it gives us the tools that we need to affect a reasonable compromise. So thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm not going to recognize. Sir? Does he want to talk or not? No. Sir, do you wish to be heard? I'll entertain the motion after this gentleman speaks. I'm sorry, sir, what's your name?
David DeGan, 72 Water Street.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
And in the interest, I will keep this brief just because I'm not actually going to be arguing nuts and bolts so much as just making the point that in this issue of like historical preservation, basically what you're balancing is the ability of contractors to legitimately make money and to have things that don't get in the way of their ability to actually execute projects. And I'm sympathetic to that. The other hand of it is the fact that once this stuff is gone, it's gone. And I had a brief sojourn down in New Jersey around the time of COVID. I was kind of trapped down there. And I heard a comedian in New York make the joke that New Jersey history is 400 years old, but only about an inch deep. And I found that to be accurate. Most people in the towns that I was in New Jersey had no idea about anything in the towns that they were in. As soon as the thing became redundant, it was bulldozed and made into something else. And there's no sense of any town in New Jersey having a distinct personality from another town in New Jersey. They run into each other, and we're not like that here. And I'm very sympathetic to the sense that nobody wants to be in the process of trying to make something happen and being told this could be a year and a half that you'll be fighting this long, endless battle until you can make the thing be done. To be clear, when we're saying that 18 months, that's up to 18 months. If the thing could get resolved in short term, that would be great, right? And I would argue that the issue is that we don't really have robust systems for taking care of these things. And what we're left with is people using nickel and dime methods to try to solve problems over the course of long, long periods of time. And I'll have to admit that my sense on the issue is impacted a little bit by the reason why I got up earlier to ask the question about the culvert, right? That granite bridge that I was talking about and trying to specify is 40 feet away from a wooden bridge that I used to canoe under as a kid. And I later on found out that wooden bridge actually dated to like the 17th century. And somebody came along and just cut it down with a chainsaw because it wasn't convenient. It's gone. And there really isn't a system to try to protect things like that. So yeah, I'm speaking in favor of the original motion for the fact that these systems need to be more robust. And you know what? If you think that you'd like to weaken these things, then what I'd suggest is coming up with ways to support the people who could otherwise document these things quickly so they could go about the process of developing.
Thank you. I'll accept that motion to move the question. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of moving the question, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Now we're going to vote on the motion to amend, which proposes a reduction of the waiting period specified in the bylaw from 18 months down to 6 months. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. That motion fails. We'll now proceed to the main motion seeking approval of the demolition delay bylaw as outlined. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. So voted. Article 30 seeks to establish a revolving fund for demolition delay by bylaw/historic preservation fund sponsored by the Select Board. The motion is, since it follows the establishment of the amended bylaw, move to establish a revolving fund for the demolition delay bylaw fees collected from property owners applying for a demolition application on a property built in 1950 or earlier by amending the table at Article XLIV, Section 5, by adding the following and establishing an initial expenditure limit of $2,000. Is there a second? Finance Committee recommends favorable action, 6-0, with Matt Leach absent. Topics open for discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Article 31, zoning bylaw, floodplains. To see if the town will vote to amend the Holliston zoning bylaws at section V-J with respect to floodplain district regulations, and it's outlined in technical detail for a number of pages. We have the town planner here this evening if there are technical questions that are posed that need to be answered. The motion is to move to amend the Holliston zoning bylaws at section B-J as presented in the warrant. The explanation offered is that this update to the zoning bylaw would enable homeowners in regulated flood zones to purchase flood insurance. I'm advised that the planning board, as required by Chapter 40 of the Mass General Laws, did hold a hearing and did generate a favorable recommendation for your consideration in connection with the zoning article. As the zoning article requires a 2/3 majority, we have, did I get a second? Did I have a second on the motion? Okay, thank you, the second. All right, the topic is open for discussion. Seeing none, it requires a 2/3 vote, so we'll see if it's unanimous or close there too. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So voted. Excuse me?
Declare it 2/3.
Yes, I declare that's a 2/3 vote, and that passed favorably. Now, before we reach Article 2, I've had two folks, members of the group this evening. I kind of smell a rat, but I'm going to call on them anyway, rather than we plunge into Article 33. So the town clerk asked me first. She wanted to address the town meeting, and then Mr. Alford also wanted to say a few words. So, Liz?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything tonight. I've had the pleasure of sitting next to you for many years, and while you conduct the town meeting in the graceful way that you do. But I also did a little research, and you have a total of 31 years of service to the town of Holliston. School committee from 1987 to 1991. Select Board from 91 to 94, School Committee from 94 to 97, Town Council from 2002 to 2017, and now Moderator from 2019 to 2025. I'm not done yet, because he deserves this. We'll miss the efficiency with which you run your meetings, your kindness, your patience, your humor that you add, and your vast knowledge of the town and the people in it. Thank you so much for 31 outstanding years. Go enjoy your life on your own time. Thank you, Bill. It's your turn, David.
Well, so Liz was much better prepared than I was, but you do such a nice job recognizing people who are stepping off boards or leaving public service after so long. So I did want to just make sure that you were recognized, but Liz did a far better job than I did. So just thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll be brief. I guess it's time for me to go. It's supposed to be easier to leave if I lost an election and I was just turned out than to just voluntarily say I'm all done. I've thoroughly enjoyed living in town. Cindy and I are going to continue to stay here. As most of you know, we had 3 children. We lost one of our oldest child to cancer. He's buried here in Holliston, so I have a connection to the town that is, it's going to be lifelong. I have had the privilege of serving as moderator. In the other positions, I could speak my mind and advocate for what I thought, and as a trained lawyer, I do that, and I do it every day. I hope that I can say as moderator that I left you all guessing with respect to what I felt about any particular issue, and you didn't know I was for it or against it, and that was important to me, and it was also, as you'll know, important to me that we had a civilized debate. When I was a law student, I was an elected town meeting member in Framingham. I love the town meeting. I love the forum. I've been a little disappointed at times that we didn't have enough public debate, but tonight was an exception. We had a lot of interesting discussion from folks and people, and I've worked here in town with a lot of wonderful people, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And the position of moderator is, to me, is a very important one because neutrality is of utmost importance. So I respect all of you, and I've worked with a great team of people here, and it's been my enjoyment. So thank you very much. So let's move on to, thank you. Let's move on as we can to Article 32. This is a citizen's position. It's offered by Mr. John Tapper, 78 Stony Brook Drive. I guess in conjunction with or on behalf of or with Anissa Tapatoras, who's 16 years old and a junior at Holliston High School. It's a citizen's petition, and under the Mass General Law, the town is required to accept a citizen's petition in the precise format that it's tendered to us, as long as it's signed by the appropriate number of sponsors. And this article indicates as follows, and provides as follows: to see if the town will vote to accept this proposed ordinance, no person under the age of 18 shall discharge any rifle, shotgun, or handgun within the borders of the town of Holliston, except within an area designated for such purposes, or with consent of the Select Board, or with consent of the controlling government body thereof. And the motion is as follows: move to accept the proposed article and amendment, changing the word ordinance to bylaw. You may know that cities have ordinances and towns have bylaws, so the proposal is to change the article to incorporate the word bylaw rather than ordinance, that no person under the age of 18 shall discharge any rifle, shotgun, or handgun within the borders of the town of Holliston, except within an area designated for such purpose, or with consent of the Select Board, or with consent of the controlling government body thereof. The proposed language is to be added to the end of Section 9 of Article XXIV of the bylaws. Is there a second? And then I call on the sponsor or Anissa, whoever they've designated, to come up and speak with us. Are they present here this evening? Yes, go right ahead. Come up. And don't feel constrained by the hour. Just introduce yourself and then say what you'd like to say to us, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. As mentioned before, my name is Nisa Tapper-Torres, and I live at 78 Stony Brook Drive. I'm currently a junior here at Holliston High School, and during this academic year, I've been working on a bylaw for a capstone project for the Global Citizens Program here at school. But now it is much more than just a class assignment. Rather, it's an opportunity to make an important and necessary change for our beloved community, and it's important to make us safer. I'm so sorry. I'm really nervous right now.
You know what you can do? Pretend there aren't 80 or 100 people here. Just look at Mr. Solnier right in front. Just pretend you're talking to him, okay? Forget the rest of us.
This proposal isn't to restrict minors who have firearm identification cards from shooting guns, but to prevent teenagers from making irresponsible or impulsive decisions with weapons that they don't know how to handle. This wouldn't impact any teen from going to the local shooting range here in town or prevent teens from hunting with their parents. I'm simply up here to place the idea of updating our gun laws to reflect modern times, which Holliston hasn't done since 1989. Over the last several years, gun violence by teens has increased, making this a reasonable step to prevent a gun tragedy from happening in our town. Since 1989, there has been over 390,000 reports of gun violence in schools, with the percent of kids bringing guns to schools going up 150.7% since 2020. This is a growing problem that can no longer be ignored. Gun violence has been a controversial subject for so long, but doesn't have to be. There's nothing controversial about keeping kids safe. We as Americans have to use our rights that allow us to change the laws that we live by to impact the community that we all know, all live in, and all love. To wrap up this long night, I humbly ask you one more time to vote yes. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Further discussion? And where we start? No, you, sir, you're kind enough to yield. Why don't we call on you first?
Ben Zemer, 593 Winter Street. So I'm kind of curious of how this makes us safer and what problem in Holliston this actually addresses that is a safety concern for people. And then you mentioned that this doesn't restrict individuals with ID cards or for hunting, but there's nothing in this that provides for that. There is explicit state law that provides people under the age of 18 with the right to use a firearm for hunting, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then also, has this undergone any legal review from a lawyer or anybody that is going to have to defend this? You know, because the town's going to have to defend this if it becomes a bylaw. Someone's going to, you know, challenge this, rightfully so, because there are multiple conflicts with other laws. So are us taxpayers going to have to foot the bill for a lawyer to defend this when there isn't really a practical problem in front of us? Thank you.
You can respond, but before you respond, I'll give you an opportunity to respond, but I just want to say that when I saw the article, I raised with town council the question of whether or not the concept of preemption comes into play here, where a city or town can be restricted from legislating one or more topics that are already the subject of state law or federal law. And I'm going to ask Jay to weigh in on that because he had a view on it. I shared the view with him. I just wanted Mr. Zima to understand that we had given some consideration toward that. So Jay, do you want to offer some thoughts on it?
Sure. And the last speaker raised an important point that there are, in fact, laws regarding the right to use discharge firearms with respect to at certain ages. I thought that looking at this one, I thought it was a close question. Fortunately, that if this town meeting approves it, the Attorney General gets to review it after we do. I think there is a strong argument that home rule prevails and that it is an acceptable exercise of home rule, and I think there's a decent argument that preemption could apply too, but the Attorney General, that's why they exist. We send these all bylaws to them and they would have the last word on it here. I think the moderator and I thought it was worthy of being presented and allowed to be taken to a vote.
So that would mean that we wouldn't be incurring expense at the local level for legal opinions and things of that nature. It goes from us to the AG's office, and they would review it and tell us whether or not they, if it's passed a town meeting, whether it's lawful or not. Okay, further discussion? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, did you want to speak to it yourself? Now that you've got your maiden speech under your belt, this should be easy for you.
Yeah. Just to answer your first question, this isn't so much as a responsive bylaw as it is a preemptive one. I actually don't know where the, okay, yeah, sorry. So there's been an uptick of gun violence. We can all see it in the news, and there's always been some sort of gun violence in U.S. history. This can be seen dated back to when we first got here, like the 1600s. But as I just said, there's been a resurgence of, not really a resurgence, but an uptick, I keep saying. And I would rather pass this now than deal with the tragedies of it later. Like, nobody could ever predict a tragedy like a shooting happening in any town. So I feel like, and with my research, I feel like passing this is so much better than waiting to pass it or having this discussion after the fact, after a tragedy has occurred. Does that answer your first question?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Further discussion? Yes, Jay. I'll give you another chance, Mr. Zima, before we finish the debate.
Jay Leary, 146 Karen Circle. There's no mention, we have in town, we have 2 licensed gun ranges in town. How is that addressed in this potential bylaw? Is that considered something that is not subject to change, or and can we put that in there, that it's not subject to change? And I'll tell you why. I am a coach of the junior rifle team of the Holliston Sportsman Association. I've been doing it for about 14 years now. The kids that we get in range from age 12 to 21. We teach responsibility and safety of use of rifles and guns and other things. I would hate to see that. It's been a thing that's been going on at the Sportsman Association for probably 50-something years. I would hate to see that go away. That's the one I represent. I know there's also Mass Firearms on October Hill. They have courses in the same thing. So I would like an amendment to be made that it guarantees that currently licensed ranges and stuff are allowed to remain so and will not be subject to this bylaw.
Jay, let me ask, before I ask for a second to that, my own view was that the proposed bylaw seeks to restrict the discharge of any rifle, shotgun, and handgun within the borders, except within an area designated for such purpose. My view was that an area designated for such purpose would be reasonably interpreted to be shooting ranges or things of that nature.
Well, I
Do
just
you
want to
agree
make
with
sure that that is the case.
Jay, do you,
because-
Talman, do you agree with that? But you disagree with me.
I agree, especially if there's licensure involved with it. So that is a designated.
That's what I want to make sure that that's there. Okay, thank you.
You content with that, Jay? Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, yes. Yes, sir.
Very briefly, maybe, sorry, Mike Tanby, 25 Morgan's Way. Is the phrase, except within an area designated for such purpose, sufficiently specific? Is it too legally ambiguous, in your opinion? And do we need to modify it to be a little bit more specific? Could I just designate my backyard?
Well, I think it would really be a matter of designated as being authorized by the town, in that to the extent that the town is allowing it as a matter of law through licensure or otherwise, or zoning or other regulations. That's what it's intended for. And I'm always wary to try and capture everything really specifically. Broad brushstrokes are often better, because it provides some flexibility in the nature of the designation for that particular use. When you try and designate everything specifically, usually something falls through the cracks. So a broader brushstroke could be stronger for that particular position. That's just my general view.
Okay. Mr. Zima, you going to argue against your son? No? Okay. Well.
I come from a family.
I'm sorry, identify yourself, although I did.
I'm Jeffrey Zemer, 583 Winter Street. I come from a family from a long tradition. So we are sons of the American Revolution. We frequently go to many towns in Massachusetts, elsewhere, where we honor our forebears and their sacrifices for our liberties, and part of that is musket volleys, okay? So unless you're going to get a little more particular, they are firearms. We do not discharge balls or any bullets. They are still firearms, and very much so. But they're they're part of the American Revolution. Everyone's rights here were made possible by that right and perseverance, and fourth, carried down through the generations. I served in the military. My father served in the military. My uncle served in the military. My uncle was a Congressional Medal of Honor winner in World War II. We have a long tradition of defense, upholding rights, serving in town for decades for the good of the people. I understand the heart that this young woman has put into her thoughts, and I think I would like to help reduce any firearm issues with children, for sure. However, knowledge, training, and respect is something that needs to be brought forth. So I offer my hand out to her if she wants to discuss something. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes?
Jamie Ring, 427 Prentice Street. I'd like to commend you for taking this on. It's an important topic, and I'm all for strong gun laws. My question, though, is what issues is this covering that are not already covered under the stronger Massachusetts laws and hunting laws? My understanding is that 15 to 18-year-olds are allowed to get an FID. It's only for long guns with bolt action only. and they are allowed to hunt without parental supervision. But they're also learning to, respect the weapons, et cetera. But, sorry. The lands in Holliston, if you go to the hunting laws, there's very few places that it's actually lawful to discharge the weapon or even carry the weapon loaded. So where is it that is not already designated as an approved place to shoot that this protects against? I guess that's a legal question.
I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. Do you want to respond to that, Miss? Oh, Jay, go ahead.
So I don't have specific knowledge as to where folks are allowed to shoot or not allowed to shoot in Holliston. There's no question that this is more restrictive than state law. So it's a question as to whether or not it could be preempted. The issue of preemption isn't so much that there's a less restrictive state law. The question is whether or not there was an intention by the state to cover all regulation of a particular subject. Guns could, in some respects, are that, but in general, towns are allowed to make more restrictive local bylaws in some areas unless there's a clear expression by the legislature that they are the sole authority. And I think that will be up to the Attorney General. The rest of the issues presented here, I think, are policy questions for this body.
Thank you. Further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. Yes, excuse me.
Michelle Zemer, 583 Winter Street. I usually do not agree with my husband and son when it comes to gun control. I want to put that right out there. But I wanted to make an amendment to the article, and that's at the end saying, or property owner, or in the lawful defense of life or property, because that comes from the existing bylaw. And you could probably tell they're gun people. I'm not. But I know that Ben did marksman, he did skeet shooting, he did, what's the other one? He did it all. And he practiced in our yard 500 feet away from residents. We've got 2 1/3 acres. Our neighbors have, I think, 12 acres. So he was able to do it safely with the hay bales and, everything that you're supposed to do. And it was our personal property. And I think that should be able to be continued because the state law says that they have to have the permission of a parent. So as long as a parent approves it, it's on your own property, and you meet the bylaw requirement of distance and not on someone else's property and having approval, it seems like you should still be able to do it, as long as it doesn't conflict with the state law.
Okay, so Michelle's motion is to amend the motion so as to provide at the end of government body thereof, or property owner, or lawful defense of life or property. Is there a second? Second. All right, we'll discuss the proposed amendment. Yes, sir?
Devin Howe, 10 Dixon Circle. First off, I personally don't enjoy these types of conversations. I try to keep politics out of the public side, if you will. I usually like to stick with the zoning side and the compliance side. Certainly appreciate the concern from this young lady here. I myself, my wife is actually an educator, so obviously safety is near and dear to me. Obviously things you hear in the news is terrible. Unfortunately, the reality that, I see with something like this is, it further confuses the regulations that, have been created by the state legislature. I'm sure some people may be aware substantial changes this past year were made to gun laws. A lot of them are going to court right now. It's almost comical where, I'm a member of the Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts, and I just get weekly updates on, this is in court now, this is in court now. And I think this type of bylaw opens up Holliston to a lawsuit for unfortunately, I say it in a way that's not to underestimate it, but what does this accomplish? It further complicates it. It'd be easier just to write Article 32 to say no one shall negligently discharge a firearm. Don't break the law. Don't shoot someone. So I know there's a motion already on the table, so I ask the moderator if I could make a motion to indefinitely postpone this article.
Second.
Yes? Discussion? Yes, sir?
No.
We're now discussing the motion to indefinitely postpone, but you can touch on the merits of the underlying article.
Andres Vargas, 12 Curve Street. First of all, I want to congratulate you. That is absolutely fabulous that this is coming from you. And I think that regardless of the outcome of it being postponed or going through, it is a win. It is a huge win that this conversation is happening right now, that we're here debating it. So on that, I really want to congratulate you because there has been something that has been gained tonight. That said, I, as a gun owner, I don't really think that prohibition is the way to go with anything. It is education. Educating young people to learn how to responsibly use guns is much more important. I am a firm believer that 10 out of 10 shootings that have happened in this country could have been prevented by actually taking care of these kids, by having given them the care that they needed when they yelled out in help, instead of having ignored them. And I hope that we can actually provide that for every single kid in this town so we never see a tragedy like that. The other ones that we see a lot are the kids who have, like you said, no clue how to use a firearm and end up shooting somebody. Once again, that is education that comes into place. Teaching kids how to properly use a firearm, how to not use a firearm is very important. So, I learned how to shoot from my dad. My dad taught me how to shoot, and I want to teach my daughter how to shoot. I think that's the important part. So I will go with the motion of postponing it indefinitely, also because there's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of the language is not there. We've seen so many people asking so many questions about the ranges, about the state laws, that I don't think it's really good. That said, I really want to say again, this was a huge win for us as a community, so congratulations. Thank you.
Further discussion? Last word. Go right ahead.
Sorry, I don't know if this will really bring anything to the conversation. I just wanted to clarify some languages that, or some language issues that I didn't seem to think clearly. The intention of this proposed bylaw is not to impact anybody's history with shooting guns or going to the shooting range. As I mentioned, this would not affect anybody from hunting with their parents. This would solely prevent a kid from deciding to take their parents' gun out to have, to go shoot. This would have accountability for those kids in Holliston law. Sorry, I wrote a couple of notes down somewhere. Right now, in Massachusetts law, kids are allowed to shoot their guns at their home without a license, with the consent of the parent and with the supervision. I believe that was the motion put in place to amend this bylaw, correct? Was that the language that they
No.
added? No?
No. That's
Okay.
that's state law.
Okay, yeah. I heard someone mention earlier that, I think it was this lady over here, that like kids who want to learn how to shoot a gun safely, they should be allowed to do that at home with parental supervision and with parental consent. I do believe that. I don't want kids believing that they have that right to go shoot a gun in their backyard without the parental consent, without the parental supervision, and harming someone or themselves. To add on to a gentleman who spoke earlier about the history of a certain group, I believe that would, first and foremost, he mentioned muskets. Muskets are not rifles. I specifically mentioned, I don't mean to be going into specifics here, but I specifically mentioned rifles, shotguns, or handguns, and muskets do not fall under that. And also, I feel like that would be something that could be brought to the select board or the controlling government body, which I took when I was writing this to mean either the police chief or the state. I don't know if that cleared up anybody's questions about this or if this helped in any way. If this does get postponed indefinitely, I would love to hear people's feedback and how I could improve this later on, because I would love to bring this up again. Thank you very much for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Okay, if we can, let's proceed to a vote. The first, in the order of priority, will be first, we'll vote on the motion for indefinite postponement that was made and seconded. All those in favor of indefinite postponement, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Could you tell? No. No, I think we need a hand vote on it. It's too close to call. We have same tellers?
No, they're still here.
Still here. Okay, though. All those in favor of indefinite postponement, raise their hand, please.
What'd you say?
22. You can speak up. It's not secret.
You can say it out loud.
Huh?
22.
Okay.
16. 6.
He's not voting.
That it?
Yeah.
Okay. All those opposed to indefinite postponement, please. So is it indefinitely postponed? Yes. Okay. Okay, the vote is those in favor of indefinite postponement are 68, those opposed are 42. The matter stands indefinitely postponed.
Motion to adjourn.
All those in favor of adjournment? So voted. Good night and thank you all.